Chapter 13-14. The two girls wielding sacred swords were in a sorry state, sweating profusely as they stood back to back, staring at the approaching enemy. Was this sent by Kokbor? Dustless glanced at Shinra Chuanji and asked. The picture was quite good, probably taken at close range. Kokbor probably ordered his men to take it to threaten Riaz. The atmosphere was tense, and no one said a word. In the middle of the picture was a close-up of Kokbor himself, flapping his dense black wings, his expression full of arrogance. As a cadre of the fallen angels, Kokbor did have the right to look down on others. This idiot called Kokbor looks like an idiot. Is he tired of living, or does he think that he is invincible and can look down on everything? Dustless spoke first to break the silence. I've decided to save them. Riaz followed suit. The decision was sudden, but her tone was firm. This time it was not just about saving Genova and Wisteria Rena, as well as her kin Hata Issei. Everyone, get ready. They definitely did not expect to rescue the hostages after sending the picture. Riaz spoke quickly. Her sudden change of heart seemed to be without a plan, but in reality, she had ulterior motives. Don't you need to prepare? The enemy is a high-ranking cadre of the fallen angels, someone who once fought against the gods. Shinra Chuanji's expression changed, and her words were full of dissuasion. This picture was sent by Kokbor himself. It must be a trap. Don't fall for it. They must have planned this beforehand, and are waiting for us to walk right into their trap. Of course, I know it's a trap. Before Riaz could speak, Dustless spoke first. If we're afraid of the enemy just because it's a trap, then we're no different from a salted fish. Dustless's words made everyone unable to restrain their laughter. The originally tense atmosphere eased up quite a bit. You're crazy. Kokbor is a cadre of the fallen angels, not a normal pawn. Shinra Chuanji did not give up and tried her best to dissuade Riaz. She said softly, the president hopes that everyone can wait for about 2 hours, and then we can. I appreciate Song's kindness, but I don't need it. This is a mission from the Supernatural Research Lab. She actually wanted to use this opportunity to test the strength of herself and the favored. After all, there would not be any major problems. After all, with the existence of the Bug Dustless, all problems would be solved. Under the dark night sky, the whole world was bitterly cold. In a remote outskirts, there were very few people here. All that could be seen were plains. There was only an inconspicuous and dilapidated church. The walls were covered with thick moss, and it had been abandoned for a long time. Swish, swish. After a series of sharp whistling sounds, Dustless and the others appeared. Alilai. He actually chose such a barren place as our burial ground. That fellow Korkabor is truly heartless. Riaz and the others had wanted to sneak in and figure out the situation, but Dustless' dissatisfaction spread throughout the night, and they were all exposed to the enemy. Ahem. I didn't do it on purpose. I just felt it. Dustless coughed awkwardly when he saw everyone looking at him with disdain. Thud, thud, thud. At the same time, leisurely footsteps came from inside the church, along with an arrogant tone. Hikik. Shitty Demon's teammates have finally come to save the Shitty Demon. Haha. Good, this time let me chop you all into pieces and feed you to the dogs. Hearing this crazy tone, Dustless did not even need to look to know who it was. Ah. All the trash demons are mobilized this time. 1, 2, 3, 5 or 6 came at once. This is enough for me to show off my skills. Fried carried his oddly shaped golden greatsword and shouted. He did not care about Riaz and the others at all, and had already sentenced them to death. There are so many arrogant bugs like him. Doesn't he know that he's the reason why I hate him for smelling the air around him? Dustless waved his hand in annoyance. He realized that the air he breathed into his nostrils had a foul stench. You damned handsome gigolo, what did you say? Hearing that, Fried's gaze fell on Dustless. He was not an idiot. Naturally, he knew what Dustless meant. How dare he say that my mouth stinks? How dare he? Under everyone's gaze, Fried carried his gleaming holy sword and turned around, walking towards Dustless. His face was cold as ice. Shitty Demon, there seems to be a difference between you and them. Pointing at Riaz and the others, Fried frowned slightly. His sloppy expression was somewhat restrained. He felt that there was a world of difference between Dustless and Riaz and the others. How shocking. You can still see the difference between Riaz and me. TSK. I didn't think that there would be a piece of trash like you in this backwater latrine. Dustless said with a smile, giving a thumbs up with a flattering expression. Riaz, Junai, Tachin Kitten, Aisha, and the others could not help but laugh. Dustless's analogy was even worse than pointing at Fried's nose and scolding him. You're asking for it. I'll cut you into pieces right now. Seeing this, Fried flew into a rage. Holding the sacred sword he had stolen, he charged at Dustless. This young gigolo's strength was only half-baked, but his mouth was sharp and crafty. Chapter 13-15. Fried's crazy face was distorted. His eyes were filled with tyrannical light. The way he looked at Dustless was as if he had met the enemy who killed his father after so many years. Stupid thing. Seeing this, Dustless's pupils shrank, and a cold mist appeared around his body. Go to hell, you hateful gigolo. When he was only a few meters away from Dustless, Fried stomped hard on the ground with both feet. His body was like a spring as he jumped dozens of meters high. Trying to kill me with the force of falling? There is a disdainful sneer on the corner of his mouth. If he was killed in a daze, the Kage who was killed by him in the past, as well as the Marine Admiral, including the Captain of Death, will harass him in his dreams. What a bright light! Fried exclaimed. A small light suddenly condensed on his thumb, and it was the size of a thumb. You want to use this fluorescent light to resist me? Is today April Fool's Day? Fried held the holy sword with both hands and gathered 90% of his strength, intending to cut Dustless in half. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. It was also at this critical moment that a black shadow suddenly appeared and disrupted Fried's plans. Clang! Sparks flew in the void, and Fried's invincible attack was stopped. Kiba Yudo blocked the fatal attack for Dustless. You really like to meddle in other people's business. Dustless glanced at the blonde young man in front of him, and his tone was not frivolous, nor did he show any gratitude. That's right, damn handsome blonde. You really like to meddle in other people's business. Fried gritted his teeth. Because of Kiba Yudo's interference, Dustless's annoying face was still alive in the world, disgusting him. Leave Fried to me. He and I are old rivals. You guys go and save Ishite-kun. Kiba Yudo held his sword with both hands, completely different from his usual gentleness, revealing a cold murderous intent. Be careful, Yudo. Seeing how insistent he was, Riaz did not refuse Kiba Yudo's kindness and sneaked around Fried into the ruined church. Are you trying to ignore my existence? Fried glared angrily at Riaz, who was leaving in a hurry. Just as he was about to charge at her, an agile figure blocked his path. Clang! Yudo brandished the long sword in his hand. His swordsmanship was quite exquisite, and he forced Fried to retreat from tricky angles. You guys have fun, I'll be leaving first. Dustless waved his hand at Kiba Yudo as he hummed a tune, and walked into the depths of the church like he was taking an afternoon stroll. Bastard, who allowed you to leave? Stop right there. Seeing Dustless's frivolous expression, Fried was furious. Seeing that Dustless had exposed his back to him, he knew that this was a rare opportunity to launch a sneak attack. However, what happened next made Fried vomit blood. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The cold glint of a sword swept toward Fried. His heart was bleeding. Helpless, he could only retreat. The distance between him and Dustless increased until they completely disappeared. Bastard demon, that gigolo is a very important person in your organization. Otherwise, you wouldn't be protecting him so desperately. Fried narrowed his eyes and said. He could acutely sense that Dustless's identity was not ordinary. He is indeed extraordinary, but he is our department head's fiancé. Yudo did not try to hide anything. Dustless's identity was no secret. However, there is one thing that you are mistaken about. I did everything I could to prevent you from getting close to him, not to protect Dustless. Yudo took a deep look at Fried, whose expression was twisted with madness, and said bluntly, You misunderstood. I prevented you from getting close to Dustless because I know that you are not from the same dimension as him. I reckon that you will be instantly killed. This is not the ending I want to see. I still have a lot of questions to ask you, so naturally, I can't let you die so easily. Rather than protecting Dustless, it's better to say that I am protecting you." Inside the spacious and dilapidated church, the air was filled with the stench of rotting corpses, which was nauseating. There doesn't seem to be any powerful characters. His observation hockey spread quietly like a wave, and the entire dilapidated church was under the eyes of Dustless. Carefully perceiving the surrounding life forms, Dustless was disappointed to find that most of them were at the level of supporting characters. "Ishichin-san, are you okay?" On the stone pillar supporting the entire church, Kyuta Issei was covered in blood and tightly bound by iron chains. His body was full of wounds, and it was estimated that he had been tortured before. "There is someone else." Under the perception of observation hockey, Dustless found that there was a person tied on the other side of the stone pillar. When he approached, it was a familiar figure. "Miss Rina-e?" Dustless walked to Rina-e's side. Looking at her sleeping face, he couldn't help but frown. "She's the only one who's been captured. Genova probably escaped unharmed. Speaking of which, where did Korkabor go?" After loosening the bindings on Rina-e, she was lying in Dustless's arms. She looked like a kitten, sleeping soundly and comfortably. "Are you really a hostage?" Wu Chen smiled bitterly as he looked at Wisteria Irina, who was in his arms. Compared to Brother Chung, who was severely tortured, she was completely fine. Ta-ta-ta. At the same time, there was a burst of footsteps in the corridor leading to the second floor, and a vague outline slowly walked downstairs. He gave people the impression that he was a deadly poisonous snake, and his entire body was filled with venom. Chapter 13-16. Dustless noticed the figure that suddenly appeared as well, but he did not pay much attention to it after noticing that he was not much different from a normal human being. He ignored him as a minor character. Now it seemed that this guy was someone. Cough cough cough. Kyuta Issei, who was rescued, coughed violently as he opened his blank eyes. "You're finally here to save me." After a long while, Kyuta Issei finally gave a disappointing reply. Riaz and the rest sighed as their hope for Kyuta Issei was extinguished. He had the world's top divine vanquisher tool, the Red Dragon Emperor's Gauntlet, but the host was terrible. Kyuta Issei's decadence had something to do with Dustless. The Supernatural Research Department had almost become Dustless's harem. Not only would Kyuta Issei not improve here, but he would also be beaten black and blue. Speaking of which, are you Balpa Galileo? Even in the pitch-black night sky, Wu Chen could still clearly see the old man coming down. On the surface, he looked benevolent and harmless, but in fact he was a ruthless executioner. Even if it was a child of a few years old, he could also kill him. At the same time, he was also the mastermind of Project Holy Sword, Balpa Galileo. "Tell me, where did Korkabor go? I have no interest in humans like you." Dustless asked lazily as his tone was filled with contempt and mockery. Balpa Galileo was fine with research, but when it came to combat he was not even as good as Freed, so he naturally could not pique Dustless's interest. "Are you looking down on me?" Barpa was enraged and at the same time he shouted, "Freed! I'm here, boss." Outside the church, there were incessant sounds of flattery. Then, a black shadow rushed over and stood beside Barpa like a guardian deity. "Looks like you'd have failed in the end. In the end, it still depends on me." Dustless mumbled to himself out of boredom. He thought that he could relax with a fallen angel officer around, but he did not even know where that guy went. Thud thud thud. At the same time, a large number of fallen angels appeared around the church. Riaz, Dustless, and the rest were surrounded without them noticing. Damn it, just as I guessed, they had set up an ambush. These fallen angels should be Korkabor's trusted followers. Riaz clenched her fists as she said with a serious look in her eyes. These fallen angels were probably loyal followers of Korkabor in the past. Allah Allah Allah. It seems like we're in trouble, Junai also said solemnly. Touching the kitten and Isha also leaned against each other with their backs facing each other, looking very nervous. Haha. You knew it was a trap, yet you still dared to walk right into it. What a bunch of hopeless idiots. Barpa held his stomach and laughed maniacally, looking very arrogant. I'll leave those small fries to you. Ignoring the surrounding fallen angels, Dustless quietly looked at Balupa Galileo and Fried. Be careful. Riaz, Junai, Takei the kitten, and Aisha gathered together. Not only did they have to defend against the incoming enemies, but they also had to do their best to protect Issei, who had fainted. Damn pretty boy, I'm not going to trouble you, but you still dare to come and die. Fried laughed savagely. He was indeed powerful, as he had already injured Kiba Yudu. Especially. Fried looked at Wisteria Rena in Dustless's arms and said sinisterly, You dare to fight me with a woman in your arms? I don't know if you're brave, or you don't know how to spell the word death. Boom boom boom. At the same time, a fierce battle broke out around them. Riaz and Junai were fighting fiercely against the incoming fallen angels. While Kitten was in charge of protecting Issei and defeating the incoming enemies, Aisha was in charge of healing him. Their teamwork could be considered tacit. Thud thud thud. Dustless looked at Fried quietly. He was too lazy to talk nonsense with this idiot. He carried Wisteria Rena and calmly walked toward him and Balpa Galileo. His clean face had no extra expression, and his eyes were as calm as water. This kind of ant could be killed with a raise of his hand. He had no right to talk to him. Bang. After closing the distance between Fried and Balpa Galileo, Dustless suddenly stopped. He hooked his finger and sneered contemptuously. Bring it on, small fries. Hearing this, Fried's anger exploded. Kiba Yudo's words had already left a deep psychological impact on him. Now that Dustless dared to provoke him in such an arrogant manner, he could no longer tolerate it. Moreover, Fried did not know what tolerance meant. Go to hell, annoying pretty boy. Fried had the same evil expression every time he appeared. When he attacked the enemy, he always liked to show an extremely twisted and sick face. He could do it to others, but he was still far from being able to intimidate Dustless. He was just asking for humiliation. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The sharp radiance of the holy sword was about to swallow Dustless and Wisteria Rena, but the two of them were motionless like stones, treating everything as air. Seeing that Dustless did not dodge, Fried's hideous smile became even more sinister. His sick smile was filled with evil, as if he could already see Dustless's tragic death. Buzz buzz buzz. When the holy sword was about to cut through Dustless's head, a transparent repulsive force field expanded. Shinra Tensei. Sensing the special power coming from his body, Fried's expression changed slightly. This was an attack without any substance, and it sent him flying effortlessly. Bang. Fried landed heavily on the bed. The dull sound was as if his bones were broken, and there was obvious blood flowing out of his head. KO in one move. Chapter 13-17. The commotion on Dustless's side attracted everyone's attention. They were all stunned and looked at him in disbelief. Dustless easily sent Fried flying without making a move. It was as if Fried was the one who was sent flying. Fried. Seeing such a scene, Balpa Galileo roared in anger out of humiliation. Oh boss. Seemingly used to being an underling for a long time. Even though Fried was still unconscious, when he heard Balpa Galileo's voice, he instinctively called the boss. How have I treated you? Suppressing the anger in his heart, Balpa asked with a gloomy face. Do you even need to ask? Of course you're rotten to the core. You think you're good to me. Fried complained in his heart, but on the surface, he had a flattering expression. He raised his thumb and said against his conscience, Boss, I'm indebted to you even more than my own parents. Hearing this, Balpa became even angrier. He took out a pistol and pointed it at Fried. Since you know that I'm good to you, why did you throw yourself out? That kid didn't even make a move, and there was no magic fluctuation. Your acting is too fake. But this prop is pretty good. There's so much blood on your head. This prop is exactly the same as human blood. Caw caw caw. Hearing this, countless crows flew over Fried's head. He was speechless and decisively labeled Balpa Galileo as an idiot. Throw the match? I'll let your sister loose. Even I don't know how I got sent flying. Fried's face was dark. His boss was only good at research, but he was an idiot in all other aspects. The enemy is right in front of you, and you two still dare to put on such a weird performance. You two are quite capable, you two are very talented in acting, but I'm not interested in this kind of vulgar drama, So I'm sorry, but please die. Behind Balpa, high-density photons floated and flashed, and Dustless appeared. He looked down coldly at Balpa Galileo, who had his back facing him. Light danced in his right hand, and a golden greatsword instantly condensed into form. Feeling the aura of death that he had never felt before, Balpa was so scared that his soul trembled. He turned his head to look, only to see a deathly still expression on his face, as he raised the heaven-gathering cloud sword that was made from the glint fruit. Don't kill me. The person protecting me is a high-ranking officer of the fallen angels, Corcobor. Balpa Galileo retreated in fear, hoping that Dustless would be afraid of the reputation of the fallen angel cadre. After all, Corcobor was someone who had fought with God and the Demon King. Swish. Swish. It would have been better if Balpa Galileo had not said such nonsense. After he finished speaking, the heavenly sword of clouds fell even faster, and instantly cut Balpa into pieces. Poochie. He was cut in half by Dustless like tofu. His eyes were wide open when he died, and his face was full of unwillingness. That idiot. I've been looking for him for a long time. Dustless glanced coldly at Balpa Galileo's corpse, then stepped over it and slowly walked towards Freed, who was still on the verge of ascending to heaven. Don't come over. Freed shouted in fear, scared out of his wits by Dustless's strength. However, Dustless did him a rare favor and stopped in his tracks at the first moment. Phew! Seeing this, Freed heaved a sigh of relief. Remembering Dustless's unprecedented strength, he quickly knelt on the ground and kowtowed sincerely. You will be my boss from now on. Boss, my name is... No need to introduce yourself, I know your name is Freed. Dustless directly interrupted Freed, looked at him in boredom and asked, Freed, do you know why I stopped? Freed was stunned at first, then said without hesitation, You must have taken a fancy to my talent and wanted to take me in as your underling to deal with Corcobor. You be my underling? Hearing this, Dustless could not help but laugh. He did have an underling, but his strength was hundreds of times higher than Freed's. This guy was not even qualified to carry his shoes. You don't deserve to be my underling. The reason I stopped is actually... Dustless looked at Freed with a cold gaze. His eyes had already changed, and he said in a low voice, Actually, I want to ask if you have any last words. Based on your current answer, it seems like you don't have any last words. In that case, die in peace. Amaterasu. Freed was shocked. Just as he was about to flatter, his body lit up with black flames. At first, it was just a weak flame, but in the next second, it turned into a blazing black willow. The wisp and swallowed him whole. Ah, kill me. Freed, who was being burned by Amaterasu, was in so much pain that he wished he was dead. His tone was filled with regret, and it was chilling. Idiot, enjoy it slowly. After glancing at Freed, Dustless walked toward Riaz and the others with light steps. The two of them were not from the same dimension, and the difference between them was too great. Dustless was not interested at all. It was just a one-sided slaughter. However, compared to Dustless, Riaz and the others were having a much harder time. This was a trap that Corcobor had set up in advance, and they were invading without any preparation. Not everyone had the same strength as Dustless, who could crush the world 100 times over. Riaz and the others were in a tough battle. Croc, croc, croc. The defensive magic circle that Riaz had painstakingly set up was attacked by multiple forces. She could not hold it alone. And in the end, the magic circle could not withstand the pressure and was shattered. A dense cloud of magic bullets flew toward Riaz and the others. Xiao Mao and the others were exhausted, and they could only watch as the magic bullets tried to destroy them all. Chapter 13-18. Riaz, Junai, Kitten, Aisha, and the others all had despair written all over their faces. Looking at the large number of fallen angels swarming toward them, they felt their scalps tingle and despair. Their fighting spirit also fell to the bottom, and they could not find their confidence again. They finally understood the saying that many ants could kill an elephant. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. A sky full of flashing magic attacks came whistling, and just as they were about to devour Riaz and the others, a blue barrier formed under their feet. Binding Path 73, Mountain Toppling Crystal. A triangular defensive barrier appeared instantly, turning into a sturdy barrier that blocked all kinds of attacks. Boom, boom, boom. A large number of magic light bullets all landed on the barrier, and a series of explosions sounded. The entire church shook as if it would collapse at any moment. The ground was also torn apart by the fierce battle. Boom, boom, boom. No matter how much the outside world exploded or how big the tremors were, Riaz and the rest were not affected by the aftershocks. No matter what kind of attack happened, they were not affected. It was as if Riaz and the rest were living in another peaceful world, free from the flames of war and the threat of death. How is this possible? Seeing how the barrier was so strong and indestructible, Riaz and the rest were dumbfounded. Snowball was so shocked that it was undulating. It was not that they were ignorant, but the dreamlike scene in front of them had shattered their worldview. Don't look so incredulous, as if you are living in a fairy tale world. I can tell you clearly that what you are seeing is not a dream. A voice filled with certainty sounded in the girl's ears, and it instantly attracted Riaz and the rest's attention. They were familiar with this cynical tone. Dustless. The members of the Supernatural Research Lab exclaimed. Whoosh, whoosh. Seeing Dustless appear, these fallen angels also found a new target to attack. He was like a black hole that attracted all the attacks. Boom, boom, boom. After a short few seconds, Dustless was hit by a rain of magic bullets. The violent explosions surrounded him for a long time, and his body kept breaking into pieces. But no matter what kind of attack he took, Dustless would recover again. Is he immortal? Riaz mumbled in disbelief. The cleavage that she was so proud of swayed back and forth, and the huge meatballs swayed up and down. That soul-stirring arc made Dustless ignore the fallen angel's attack, as he stared straight at Riaz. You bunch of bugs! Frowning slightly, Dustless looked around at the fallen angel who was occupying the void. His eyes turned cold, and he rolled his eyes. It was as if a natural disaster had suddenly descended upon the world. Super Shinra. Boundless chakra erupted from his body, and the surging repulsive force destroyed everything in its path. Boom boom boom. The fallen angels floating in the air turned into dust in the air, and disappeared without a trace. At the same time, they felt a lot cooler. Riaz and the others were stunned to find that after the catastrophic attack, their surroundings were no different from the apocalypse. Not even a blade of grass grew. The abandoned church was nowhere to be seen, and the fallen angel's corpse was nowhere to be found. Only the ground beneath Riaz's feet remained intact. The rest of the area had been renovated, and the soil hundreds of meters underground was exposed to the moonlight. So powerful. Hyoto Issei, who had regained his senses, swallowed hard. The Red Dragon Emperor's gauntlet on his arm also flashed with an emerald light. He was also surprised by the powerful attack. Super Shinra Tensei's power and distance limit are minimal, or this town would have disappeared as well. Dustless did not bother to explain, and at the same time, under everyone's shocked gaze, his body started to change strangely. Bam! Dustless's body started to emit white smoke, and he turned into a block of wood. What's going on, Riaz? As if their brains were not enough to process the change, Riaz and the others asked like statues, their faces blank. Damn it, now I understand what he meant by those words. Looking at the mess left behind by the Super Shinra Tensei, Riaz smiled bitterly. She was also stunned by Dustless's unfathomable strength. He once said that if one's strength could transcend the boundaries of race, then he would be the demon king and god, including the so-called dragon race. Now it seems that he was right. Riaz's tone was raised by several octaves, and it sounded very sharp. If she did not see it with her own eyes, she would have thought that this was the aftermath of a fierce battle between the gods. Is it that exaggerated? Hyoto Issei asked doubtfully in a low voice. His voice was so soft that no one could hear it. Of course, there was one special existence who was an exception, and he clearly heard Hyoto Issei's complaint. That guy is not simple, at least he is not a creature of the same dimension as you. The Red Dragon Emperor's voice echoed in Hyoto Issei's mind. His voice was full of vicissitudes, and he could not figure out how Dustless could do this. There was no magic wave. That explosive power that could destroy the world made even the Red Dragon Emperor's heart skip a beat. If he was not careful, he would be pulled into the underworld to accompany the evil spirits. Actually, you have to work hard. Even if you are not as good as that guy, you can still reach the point where you can look down on the world. The Red Dragon Emperor saw Hyodo Issei's reluctance and tried to tempt him. The Red Dragon Emperor's strength was undeniable, but it was a pity that Hyodo Issei's host was a weirdo. Only when he met something like Dustless would he be able to unleash his shocking strength. Chapter 1319. Really? Lord Red Dragon Emperor? Hyuta Issei was so excited that his eyes almost turned into hearts. In fact, he was also a young man with 8th grade syndrome. He often dreamt of himself stepping on thousands of worlds and countless beauties rushing to throw themselves into his arms. You've changed your attitude a little too quickly, partner. Red Dragon Emperor was speechless. He even suspected that if he could give Hyuta Issei great power, this guy would immediately kneel and call him Lord Red Dragon Emperor. Of course, you can even surpass that guy. Red Dragon Emperor said confidently. As one of the 2 sky dragons, his power was not to be underestimated. Korkabor hasn't shown himself yet. Could it be that he's going back to Chariot King Academy first? Ria suddenly gave a serious order. She seemed to have thought of something as her expression turned gloomy. Visible beads of sweat even dripped from her hair. The situation was urgent. Inside Chariot King Academy, a strange-looking building floated in the sky, controlled by someone's will. A man with a ferocious expression sat on top of it. He looked down at Chariot King Academy with disdain. A bunch of idiots. That's just my little trick to lure the enemy away. My real goal is to destroy this academy and this eyesore town. Korkabor said disdainfully. Kokeber said condescendingly. He lifted his gaze slightly, his face calm and confident. He did not seem to care about the crowd that was rushing over from afar. He looked over and saw that the team belonged to the student council. The leader was the president of the student council, Song Na. This despicable fallen angel's real goal is Chariot King Academy. Song Na saw Korkabor's sinister smile. Her face turned pale as she looked at his dense wings. Fear could not help but flash in her eyes. The fallen angel officers were far stronger than her. I've investigated your information. You're called Song Na Sytry, the younger sister of the Demon King, Leviathan Seraphil. If I kill you, according to Seraphil's personality, she'll definitely start a war with the fallen angels immediately. At that time, the angels will definitely be involved, and the 3 forces will start a war again, ha ha ha. Korkabor laughed maniacally. He was so excited that he almost danced. Die, sister of the Demon King Leviathan, Songnan Sytry, Kokeber said crazily. Light flickered in his hand, and a huge spear of light materialized in the blink of an eye. Kokeber, who was holding the spear of light, became even more arrogant. The hearts of Tsong Nan and the others were filled with despair. She even began to hallucinate that the Grim Reaper was waving at her with a smile. Disappear. The light spear only had half of its power, so as to prevent any sudden changes, Korkabor threw it out. It was fine as long as it could kill Tsong and the others. Destroying this town could wait. So. Chapter 1320. Powerhouses all had a common problem. They thought that they were powerful and fearless. Therefore, most of them were proud and arrogant. A mere human dares to look down on me? Don't worry, I won't kill you instantly. That would be too boring. If I kill you like this, Syzax as the Demon King would be embarrassed too. Korkabor seemed to have seen Syzax's angry expression. His arms were trembling with excitement. If you knew that I had already cuckolded Syzax, you wouldn't think that way. Dustless muttered in his heart as a strange glint flashed across his eyes. After all, you're the intruder. If you don't attack, I won't hold back. He glanced at Kokeber calmly. Kokeber was so crazy that no medicine could save him. Just you. Hearing this, Korkabor revealed a mocking smile and mocked. You should be a human, right? Your body doesn't have any magic waves. Forget about fighting me. Even if you wanted to fly into the sky and hit me, you wouldn't be able to. Korkabor, You talk too much. A cold voice came from behind. Korkabor turned his head, but the stinky sole of a shoe happened to stuff his mouth. Lightspeed kick. Korkabor, who was sitting steadily, had his mouth deformed. He was kicked crooked, and his teeth fell to the ground. His entire body was like an arrow released from a bow. The powerful force sent him flying hundreds of meters away. Boom, boom, boom. The golden light around Korkabor's body exploded. The black night sky suddenly became as bright as day. A giant fireball burned in the air, eye-catching. So powerful. Song's eyes were fixed on Dustless, who was floating in the sky. Her expression was one of admiration. A person who could cripple an officer of the fallen angels with one kick must be someone who stood at the top of the pyramid. You bastard. I will skin you alive. Korkabor's hysterical, pained, and hateful roar came from the explosion of flames. Because his mouth was kicked crooked, Korkabor sadly found that he was stuttering. Ah! Kokheber screamed as if he had lost his mind. He raised his hands high and formed a shining spear of light. Monotonous moves. Using the same move again and again, it's really boring. Sighing in disappointment, Wu Chen's interest waned. He originally thought that the fallen angels' cadres had outstanding acting skills and could bring about a thrilling performance. Who would have thought that it would be such a vulgar performance that lacked layers and surprises? Dustless only wanted to express one word: rotten. Get over here. Dustless aimed his palm at Kokheber, who was focused on strengthening the power of the Spear of Light. A teasing look flashed past Dustless' eyes. With his palm aimed at him, Kokheber immediately lost his balance. 10,000 Mammoth Heavenly Attraction. Invisible gravitational waves lingered between heaven and earth, and the flow of the wind immediately changed. Wherever the gravitational force went, everything began to float. Korkabor's body could not be controlled, swaying from side to side like a puppet controlled by strings. What's going on? A hint of panic flashed through Korkabor's eyes as he cried out in surprise. He instinctively looked at Dustless. Is this your doing? Noticing the gravitational waves coming from Dustless's direction, Kokheber asked sternly. At the same time, he revealed his black wings and flapped them with all his might, trying to stabilize his body and resist Dustless. He originally thought that it would be an easy plan. Who would have thought that the heavens would play a huge joke on him, encountering such a nameless monster that was so powerful that it could easily kill him? A drowning crow can only die. Seeing that Kokheber was resisting the gravitational force, Dustless increased the density of chakra, and the gravitational force of 10,000 heavens pull became even stronger. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. In the end, Kokheber finally lost control of his body, and was pulled over by the gravitational force. Go to hell. Driven mad, Kokheber's murderous intent intensified. He used all his strength to throw out the unformed Spear of Light. Due to the inertia of the gravitational force, it almost instantly approached Dustless and exploded. Boom boom boom. The dark night sky was sublimated once again, turning into a blinding day for a short period of time. The power of the explosion of the Spear of Light affected the void within a 100-meter radius. Even the air was vaporized by the aftermath of the explosion, and a suffocating sense of crisis filled the air. Ah, serves you right. You actually dared to provoke me. Arrogant brat, this is your tragic end. Kokheber's expression swept away the haze from before, and a painful smile appeared on his face. He touched his crooked mouth and immediately cursed without caring about his image. That damned brat, you better not have a corpse left. Otherwise, I'll definitely explode your corpse for 3 days, and then feed it to the dogs. Kokheber was furious. He gently touched his crooked mouth. His heart was bleeding. A dignified high-ranking officer of the fallen angels had his mouth crooked, and he could not even speak clearly, turning into a stutterer. Kokheber regretted it when he thought about it. He should not have killed Dustless and slowly tortured him to death to vent his hatred. Do you hate me that much? A calm and indifferent voice came from within the explosion. Dustless slowly walked out from the explosion of the Spear of Light. Unharmed. Kokheber looked at Dustless in disbelief, his mouth twitching. He was completely fine after being hit by such a powerful move? This was not a movie. How could it be? Our eyes must be playing tricks on us. Sung-na and her family were also shocked. Dustless's eternal face had left an unerasable mark in their hearts. Ko Keber, you're too weak. Even if I wanted to play a child's game with you, your performance is unflattering. Dustless shook his head and suddenly formed a hand seal, intending to end this boring battle. Chapter 13:21. His opponent was just a skinny and weak baby, who could not even retaliate. There was no sense of accomplishment or interest in playing with him, not even comparable to a 4- or 5-year-old child. Dustless really had no desire to fight. ****. Kokbor was enraged. He felt like a bug and a clown being toyed with. Let's stop here. Ominous chakra erupted from his body. Its quality was much higher than before, and it was much more powerful. Immortal spell. Wu Chen's temperament changed in an instant. His playful appearance was restrained, and his indifferent eyes did not have any emotions that a living creature should have. Those eyes that did not have any human emotions were unusually intimidating. Ko Keber felt weak in his heart. Oh no. Seeing this, Kokbor's heart skipped a beat. He realized, to his dismay, that Dustless did not intend to play with him anymore. He felt bored. Being treated like a plaything might sound very depressing, but at the very least, it meant that the other party was interested in him. Now that Dustless had suddenly put on such a cold and despairing face, Kokbor knew that Dustless did not intend to play with him anymore. This also meant that Dustless had lost his patience and would definitely destroy him. I need to think of a plan. Kokbor was sweating profusely. At this point he did not expect to start a war. If he could leave unscathed, it would be a blessing from the heavens. Kokbor, you be ****. Hurry up and return the sacred sword and Rina to me. At this moment, an unexpected shout suddenly rang out. Dustless and Kokbor were both stunned. They instinctively followed the source of the sound. Dark blue short hair danced in the wind. She was wearing tight clothes that accentuated her curvy figure. She held a large sword in her hand, looking majestic and valiant. The girl had fair skin and beautiful features. She glared at Kokbor, who was soaring in the sky, with hatred. I'll join hands with you to deal with him. Looking at Dustless with a burning gaze, Genova vowed solemnly. That day, she and Wisteria Rina had joined forces against the enemy. Although the two of them did not fear Korkabor, the difference in strength was still difficult to make up for. Genova had used a Herculean effort to escape, while Wisteria Rina had unfortunately been captured. Haha, good timing. Kokbor laughed maniacally, excitement flashing across his face. The way he looked at Genova had changed. Instead of looking at an enemy, his eyes were shining and full of covetousness. It was as if he was looking at a life-saving straw. From Genova's tone, the experienced Korkabor could tell that Dustless had a good relationship with her. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Ko Keber used all his strength and fell with all his might. However, the target of his attack this time was not Dustless. He was truly afraid of this monster. His target was Genova. Get out of the way, Genova. His target is you. Seeing through Ko Keber's intentions, she shouted loudly. However, it was too late. Genova's reaction was too slow. When she realized the impending danger and wanted to retreat, she had already become a hostage in the hands of others. Want to capture me? Dream on. Despite being captured, Genova still swung her holy sword to counterattack, displaying her extraordinary swordsmanship. Clang clang clang. Sparks flew everywhere. Genova's tide-like attacks were all blocked. She could not hurt Ko Keber at all. The difference was too great. A child's weak fists could not hurt an adult. They would only be humiliating themselves. That was the case for Genova now. Her series of attacks had no effect at all. Ha ha ha, stay still and don't move. You're the reason I'm alive. Ko Keber seemed to have seen the light of victory. He laughed maniacally and returned to his previous arrogant expression. Could it be? Upon closer inspection, Genova realized that Ko Keber was covered in wounds and looked miserable. Even his mouth was crooked. Looks like not only did I not help, but I've become a burden. Genova blamed herself and smiled bitterly. She had wanted to help, but she did not expect to put shackles on Dustless instead. Don't blame yourself. You didn't do anything wrong. Dustless also landed on the ground. He looked at the disappointed Genova and smiled. This guy is going to die anyway. You being captured is just a simple process. However, the result will never change. Kokebere still has to die. Dustless gave the final word, deciding Kokebere's fate. That's easy for you to say. Hearing this, Kokebere's blood-red eyes flashed with anger. He pointed the light spear at Genova's throat and shouted hoarsely, "Get out of my way. If you don't want her to die, let me go." However, Dustless did not appreciate it. Instead, he mocked him coldly. "Are you an idiot? Or are you a pig that can't understand human language? I've said it before. An eyesore like you will die without a doubt. You force me to do this." Kokebere spat out blood. He did not expect Wu Chen to be so arrogant. Even with a hostage in hand, he still dared to be so arrogant. Kokebere flew into a rage out of humiliation and stabbed at Genova. Pfft! The sound of a body being cut into pieces rang out. Everyone was worried for Genova, but he was not the one screaming. Ow ow! The earth-shattering scream rang through the clouds and into everyone's ears. Song Na and the rest were shocked to discover that Dustless, who was brimming with killing intent, had appeared beside Kokebere at some point in time. There was a missing arm on the ground that belonged to Kokebere. Not only that, Dustless was extremely ruthless. He cut off both of Kokebere's arms and made a bloody hole in his abdomen. This was not the most shocking thing. Dustless raised and lowered his hand again. This time, he took away both of Kokebere's legs. The bloody, violent, and cruel methods shocked everyone. Looking at Dustless, who had turned into a ghost, Song Na and the rest felt that the so-called demon was nothing compared to Dustless. This was the real Grim Reaper. Chapter 13:22. Dustless's expression was as cold as ice. His eyes were emotionless as he looked at the screaming Korkabor on the ground. He then took Genova into his arms. "Are you hurt?" Looking at the frightened Genova, Dustless asked in a hoarse voice. His tone was rare and magnetic, and his cold face quickly warmed up. It was warm, and there was a touch of humanity in his voice. "I am fine." She realized that Genova's face was burning as she struggled unnaturally. However, her insignificant strength was completely useless in front of Dustless. She was just asking to be humiliated and had no effect at all. "Don't move. This guy's not dead yet." Dustless looked at Genova strangely and held her even tighter. Genova's eyes flashed with depression. She felt Dustless tighten his grip. Her face turned even redder, as if it could resist blood. "Maybe it's because I'm in the middle of a battle, and I'm too focused to notice." Genova comforted herself. Dustless was holding on to a large ball of flesh. Due to his strength, it was squashed flat. Genova was also in pain, but she still endured it. "I hate it when people threaten me." Dustless raised his glowing greatsword again to stop Korkabor, who was screaming in pain, and said coldly, "I could have finished you in one go, but you chose the cruelest way to die. Is the brain of a fallen angel so useless? I'll haunt you even if I become a ghost." Korkabor's face was filled with despair. He no longer wanted to leave alive, especially in his current state. It was useless to leave alive. Therefore, he might as well die and drag Dustless down with him. Every second he lived was agony. With a decision in his heart, Korkabor used all the magic in his body to attack his lungs. His body, which had been cut off with 4 limbs, strangely expanded. Still planning to resist? Dustless's expression turned cold. The cold air shooting out from his face was as sharp as a blade. "No." Genova shook her head and carefully observed Korkabor's body. Her face was pale. He's going to self-destruct." "Self-destruct?" Dustless was stunned for a moment before he asked without hesitation. "Fallen angels can self-destruct? I remember that only demons can self-destruct." Genova did not expect Dustless to be so stubborn over such a small matter. Sensing the danger, Genova urged, "There's nothing strange about this. When I run out of ammunition, I can also self-destruct. Anyway, let's get away from him quickly. This guy is crazy and dangerous." "Haha, run. It's useless." My self-destruction can erase this town. Trash demons and trash humans will all go to hell. Everyone can accompany each other on the road to hell. Korkabor laughed maniacally, but he did not see the disdain that flashed across Dustless's face. Ka. Because he had accumulated too much mana, Korkabor could no longer support the immense power. Visible cracks had already appeared on his abdomen. They could see the frightening amount of energy stored in his body. Once it was released, not just Chariot King Academy, but even the city itself would be severely damaged. Boom boom boom. After pausing for a few seconds, Korkabor's body turned into a bloody mist. The huge amount of energy had been released. Everyone tensed up, waiting for the end of the world to come. Divine might. At the same time, the void suddenly twisted violently like a fried dough twist. A huge black hole appeared. The self-destruction that Korkabor had spent so much effort to prepare was swallowed up by divine might before it could explode. He's not dead? The excited Genova opened his eyes. The night sky was exceptionally beautiful, and the stars in the sky were unusually peaceful. In his joy, Genova could not help but stand on his tiptoes, pursed his thin lips, and kissed Dustless's right cheek. F***CK, I was ambushed. Usually, I'm the one who ambushes others. Today I was ambushed. Dustless was stunned and looked at Genova in shock. Forget it. This annoying cockroach is completely dead. Dustless breathed a sigh of relief. Even the corpse was gone. Korkabor's aura and corpse had completely disappeared. If he knew that his carefully prepared self-destruction had been countered by Dustless, he would probably die in anger. Aw. Looks like we're one step too late. Looks like it's over. An excited voice came from behind. Dustless turned around and saw a beautiful figure descending from the sky. Caught off guard, Dustless fell to the ground. Thud. This was the first time Dustless had been pressed to the ground since he was born, and the initiator was Riaz. Ouch, it hurts. Dustless rubbed his head, showing a pained expression. Sorry, I was too excited. Riaz showed a worried expression. At the same time, she leaned over and kissed Dustless's forehead. She asked with concern, Does it still hurt? Do you want me to rub it for you? It hurts, of course it hurts. This time, it's somewhere else. Hearing this, Wuchen looked at Riaz with regret. He wanted to slap himself. How could he waste such a good opportunity on her? What a waste of God's gift. Where does it hurt? Riaz asked with concern, hugging Dustless even tighter. It's here. You were on top of me just now. It hurts. It's probably swollen. It's best if you can help me take a few bites and rub it. Dustless pointed at his lower body. It was the most important part of a man. You dared to lie to me? Seeing this, Riaz's face flushed red. She glared fiercely at Wuchen, but while everyone's attention was still focused on the shock of Kobor's death, she discreetly rubbed Wuchen's face a few times. Chapter 1323. Dustless could not stop himself from feeling the soft touch of her hand. He was addicted to it, as if he was floating in the clouds. Dustless's soul was immersed in the warm spring water, swimming around in pleasure. TSK, what a natural seductress. After savoring it for a while, Riaz retracted her hand with a blush on her face, leaving Dustless, who was still longing for more. Smack. After gently kissing Riaz's face, Wuchen patted the dust off and stood up and scathed. You were lying to me, Himph. Riaz saw Dustless standing up proudly, and immediately understood that he was making things up. She turned her head away unhappily with a look of disdain. Ahem. Seeing this, Dustless coughed awkwardly. He noticed that everyone was looking at him differently, and some even took a few steps back. Riaz, actually I really. Croak. Dustless prepared his words and was about to explain seriously when a bright light suddenly flashed in the dark night sky. There was also the sound of space shattering. A mysterious figure in white descended quietly, like a dragonfly skimming the surface of the water. Only a few people saw his existence, as if he had walked out of the shattered space. Those who could sense his presence could be counted on one hand. That's strange. I just caught Korkabor's presence. How did he disappear now? Where did he go? This is so troublesome. If it wasn't for Asashal's orders, I wouldn't waste my time looking for such a boring guy. Forget it, it's just a bunch of bugs. There was a ripple in the sky, followed by a voice mumbling to himself. It sounded extremely narcissistic and arrogant. Who's there? Using the weak moonlight, one could vaguely see the mysterious existence in the void. He wore silver armor, and its smooth surface was extremely bright, so much so that it could even reflect light. He also had a pair of cold and domineering eyes, and when he looked at all things in the world, he revealed a faint contempt. There was no one in this world who could invade his eyes. Forget it, it's too boring. Let's leave and find a place to sleep. A human voice came from within the armor. Just as he was about to turn and leave, an unprecedented agitation came from his body. It was as if he was about to burst into flames. He immediately stopped. That feeling just now, could it be? Hey, what's going on? Why do I feel like I'm going to die from the heat? Hyodo Issei gripped his left arm tightly, or rather, he pressed down on his divine armament, the Red Dragon Emperor's gauntlet. There was a scorching current of air entering his body, as if it was going to burn Hyodo Issei to ashes. It made him very uncomfortable, as if he had met his greatest nemesis. No wonder I had such a feeling. So it's you, my old enemy. The mysterious existence floating in the sky murmured, completely ignoring the existence of Silver and the others, treating them as air. Cough cough, this fellow really knows how to act. Dustless was speechless. He naturally knew who this person was. White Dragon Emperor Wally. Yo, long time no see, Red One. Inside the white mech, there was a voice filled with vicissitudes of life. It was the complete opposite of Wally's previous tone. It sounded much more experienced. Long time no see, White One. Hyodo Issei's divine armament suddenly spoke with the same vicissitudes of life. There was no doubt that the person who spoke this time was the Red Dragon Emperor himself. Drake. Looks like you're the host of the Red Dragon Emperor, Hyodo Issei. Your appearance is really disappointing. As he spoke, White Dragon Emperor Wally looked at the sky with a sorrowful expression. This fellow really knows how to act. Seeing this, Dustless pursed his lips. His impression of this narcissistic White Dragon Emperor plummeted. His gaze landed on Hyodo Issei, and a wicked smile flashed across his face. You're so weak that you're not worth my time. I'll let Hyodo Issei beat you up for me. Dustless's smile was especially creepy as he dragged his body toward Hyodo Issei. What did you say? Hyodo Issei was furious. Wally was obviously calling him a piece of trash. We're not that far apart in age, but there's a world of difference in strength. I can already enter the Tyrant Dragon mode, but you're really pathetic. Hyodo Issei, a nobody like you is my enemy? This is really boring. Wally said in a compassionate tone. He was extremely arrogant and looked down on everyone else. It was as if he was at the top. It's necessary to create some pressure for you to catch up with me. Wally's tone suddenly became gloomy. If I suddenly kill your parents, your boring life will also be full. Hurry up. You bastard, if you dare to do that, I'll cut you into 1,000 pieces. Touching a person's reverse scale would result in death, and Hyodo Issei's reverse scale was undoubtedly his parents. Buzz buzz buzz. At the same time, Hyodo Issei's body exploded with unimaginable power. His demonic power surged, and a solid emerald light swept out of his body. Get away from him. Sensing the unusual fluctuation of Hyodo Issei's demonic power, Dustless sternly warned the girls. Who's that guy? White Dragon Emperor Wally's gaze also fell on Dustless's head. He felt like he had seen this figure in silhouette before, but he couldn't remember where. However, this guy exploded with such powerful energy. There's an unexpected surprise. Wally's tone was filled with joy. He could feel that Hyodo Issei's aura was rapidly increasing. There was a huge difference between before and after. Could this guy be a pervert? I remember that he's not interested in women. Could he be gay? Dustless shivered and thought maliciously. In his heart, he had already categorized White Dragon Emperor Wally as a comrade. It thinks it's so great. Dustless curled his lips and said disdainfully. He really didn't like people like Wally who thought he was the boss. Lizard. How dare you? I'm the same as Arubian. You're insulting me. Dradeleg's soul, who was hidden in the artifact, complained. At the same time, the Red Dragon Emperor's gauntlet kept flashing as if it was protesting against Dustless. However, he ignored it and didn't even look at it. Help me improve my strength? Hearing this, Ise Hyuga stood up excitedly and almost kowtowed to Dustless. You said it. Don't regret it. Dustless sneered and leaned close to Ise Hyuga's ear and slowly explained the whole story. What did you say? Are you sure? That bastard wants to castrate me? He doesn't want me to be a man? Ise Hyuga was petrified after hearing this. His mouth was so wide open that it could fit a fist. He subconsciously touched the thing that would carry on his ancestral line. He didn't expect Wally to castrate him. An unprecedented unwillingness burst out, driving Ise Hyuga's will. His magic power increased to a new level. At the same time, his artifact was also beeping nonstop, increasing Ise Hyuga's strength. Of course. Let me tell you, castrating you isn't the worst. That guy is a pervert. He came up with a lot of crazy ways to torture you. Dustless continued to talk nonsense. Ise Hyuga's power increased exponentially with every word he said. Wally plans to gouge out your eyes after capturing you alive, so that you can never see Appa clearly. Then he plans to cut off your arms and legs and then, damn Wally. Ise Hyuga's magic power exploded like never before. The impact of the explosion burned everything around him. Everything that could be burned was set ablaze, and everything that couldn't be burned was turned into scorched earth. After being provoked by Dustless, Ise Hyuga's aura and hatred for White Dragon Emperor Wally reached a shocking level. He hadn't even built a harem yet, and Wally was going to castrate him mercilessly. Even his arms, legs, and eyes were going to be gouged out. How vicious was this plan? Ise Hyuga's mind was filled with strong resentment. He hated Wally so much that he couldn't compromise. Otherwise, a very important part of his body would be swept into the trash. Therefore, with his strong will, Ise Hyuga's magic power was even stronger than White Dragon Emperor Wally's. I can't be castrated. I can't have my eyes gouged out. And I can't have my arms and legs cut off. I still want to conquer Appa. I still want to learn from Dustless and build a huge harem, and live a drunken life. Ise Hyuga's eyes were like torches. In order to protect this dream, he was willing to give it his all. Chapter 1325. Boundless Mana erupted, and Hyoto Issei looked like a primordial being that had just woken up. There was no end to the energy wave that erupted from his body, and even Dustless was forced to retreat. Hyoto Issei was burning with green light, and the scene was terrifying. Everything that got close to him was turned into dust. This is going to be fun. Dustless's lips curled up slightly, and then he sat down on the ground and looked like he was going to enjoy the show. How is this possible? That kid just said a few words, and this idiot exploded? What kind of freak is he? White Dragon Emperor Wally sensed the energy wave that was overflowing from Hyoto Issei's body. His tone was unstable, and his body was shaking. The energy wave that erupted from Hyoto Issei's body was even stronger than his current state. I heard that you have never been beaten up before. Today, I will let you experience what it feels like to be beaten up by someone. Stupid White Dragon Emperor. Dustless glanced at White Dragon Emperor Wally, and then raised his arm and shouted, Issei-kun, in order to not be castrated, in order to not have your eyes and limbs dug out, use all your power and defeat this jinx in one fell swoop, and build your own harem camp. When he mentioned the word harem, Hyoto Issei was as excited as if he was injected with chicken blood. He stomped his feet on the ground and shot into the sky like a cannonball. Boom, boom, boom. Hyoto Issei was like a rocket, and his feet were emitting high-density energy waves as he shot into the sky. White Dragon Emperor is going to be unlucky this time. Dustless kept loosening his shoulders, and the smirk on his face became even more obvious. You, Riyaz and the other girls looked at Dustless speechlessly, and then they looked at each other and did not know whether to laugh or cry. They did not know whether this Hyoto Issei was too naive or too stupid. Anyone could tell that Dustless's words were all made up to provoke Hyoto Issei. Bang, bang, bang. At the same time, Two figures, one red and one white, were fighting fiercely in the sky, and the result of the battle was quite clear. Hyodo Issei, who had unleashed his little universe, was as ferocious as if he was on drugs, and he grabbed White Dragon Emperor and beat him up. You want to castrate me and destroy my harem dreams. Hyodo Issei grabbed White Dragon Emperor Wally's neck, and his eyes blazing, and he shouted, "Then I'll beat you until you can't take care of yourself." The more Hyodo Issei spoke, the more excited he became. The Red Dragon Emperor's feedback was getting stronger and stronger. White Dragon Emperor Wally felt like he was being beaten up like a little kid. Boom. Boom. Issei's aura was still rising. He clenched his right fist and punched White Dragon Emperor Wally's head mercilessly. Crack. He didn't even have the time to spread his wings and absorb the attack. The divine armor that covered his head was destroyed by the ferocious Hyuga Issei. And Issei Hitata Issei. You're really something. You managed to fool Hyodo Issei with just a few words. Rias attacked from behind and hugged Dustless tightly from behind. The billowing snowball was also squashed and turned into an oval-shaped meat patty. Dustless's mind was stirred up, and he closed his eyes to enjoy it for a while. You bastard, you said you were willing, and now I'm in such a sorry state. What kind of magic potion did you feed him? How can a piece of trash have such powerful combat power? White Dragon Emperor Wally, who was spitting out blood, gritted his teeth and touched his mouth, which was already sunken in. He was shocked by Hyodo Issei's combat power. This is all your fault. Wally glared at Dustless with endless murderous intent. Dustless had made him suffer this time. White Dragon Emperor Wally's invincible legend was trampled on by a piece of trash. And the culprit was this young man in front of him who looked similar to him on the surface. Who the hell are you? Tell me your name. White Dragon Emperor Wally questioned, even ignoring Hyodo Issei, who was beside him. I'm just a nameless junior. Dustless smiled and bowed slightly to introduce himself. My name is Dustless, please take care of me in the future. Hearing this, he frowned slightly. He was sure that he had heard this name before, but because he was too annoyed, he could not remember it. He's the one who killed your subordinate in one move, Wally. White Dragon Emperor's voice spread out, and it was filled with surprise. I see. No wonder I felt that you were familiar. It seems that Beautiful Monkey and Black Song were defeated by you. White Dragon Emperor Wally was full of fighting spirit. Compared to Hyodo Issei's moment of brilliance, he wanted to challenge the mysterious Dustless more. Get up and fight with me. White Dragon Emperor Wally said excitedly. His broken mech was repaired perfectly again. Let's forget about it. Hearing this, Wuchen shook his head decisively. He glanced at White Dragon Emperor Wally with pity and said softly, You are not even as good as the little brother that I created at the last minute. Don't you think that your idea is too funny and ridiculous to fight one-on-one with me? Dustless mocked. He cared about the infinite dragon god Orpheus. As for White Dragon Emperor Wally, no matter when it started, Dustless never regarded him as an opponent. Are you looking down on me? White Dragon Emperor Wally clenched his fist angrily, and his tone was obviously low, filled with indescribable ominous feeling. I'm not looking down on you. Our starting line is not the same. You're too far away. Gently glancing at White Dragon Emperor Wally, Dustless turned around and left with the girls. Don't even think about leaving. White Dragon Emperor Wally did not give up. He flapped his wings and swept out like lightning. Chapter 13:26. A dense storm came from behind. Dustless suddenly felt as if he was locked on by the claws of an eagle and the eyes of an eagle, wanting to devour him. Stupid thing, do you really think you are invincible? Wuchen stopped and turned his head to reveal half of his face. Wuchen turned a deaf ear to White Dragon Emperor Wally, who was galloping toward him. He only gave a simple summary of the situation. What a self-righteous and arrogant young man. Little did he know that in this world where gods were everywhere, he was now just a very common existence, just like Dustless's former third brother, Uchiha Sasuke. Although he had high potential, he was now just a tiny grain of sand. Come here, don't even think about leaving. White Dragon Emperor's speed was extraordinary. His big hand covered with silver armor grabbed Dustless's head. Poochie. With a gentle grab, Dustless's head shattered and turned into bursts of photons. What's going on? White Dragon Emperor Wally felt incredible, and his tone was full of shock. This is one of my thousands of abilities, elemental transformation. Dustless calmly told him everything to satisfy White Dragon Emperor's curiosity. No matter what you understand, I have to tell you with your strength, let alone defeating me, you can't even touch my body. You look down on me? White Dragon Emperor Wally asked in a hoarse voice. His tone was full of anger and anger. Whoosh. At the same time, he didn't believe it and attacked again, turning into a storm and rushing toward Dustless. Boom. A heavy punch fell, and Dustless's abdomen collapsed again. However, what made Wally depressed was that Dustless himself was not hurt at all, and there was always a faint smile on the corner of his mouth, silently mocking him for overestimating himself. Facing Dustless, White Dragon Emperor Wally had a strange feeling in his heart. This was the most tragic thing in the world. The enemy was right in front of you, but even if you exhausted all your means, you couldn't shake him at all. Not to mention fighting with the enemy, even touching his body was as difficult as ascending to the sky. Do you only know how to use despicable tricks? White Dragon Emperor Wally had nowhere to vent his anger. He could only lose control of his emotions and yell. It seems that you are just a small character. You have failed to live up to my expectations of you. Helpless, he could only provoke Dustless verbally, who asked him to be so heaven-defying. However, Dustless was unmoved. He gave him a look of pity and turned around to walk away. You forced me to do this. The White Dragon Emperor's sinister gaze circled around Rias and the others. A look of savagery flashed across his eyes. I heard that Rias Gimli is your fiancé. Hee, if I'm not wrong, she shouldn't have the ability to avoid physical attacks. After saying that, White Dragon Emperor Wally looked at Dustless with a confident smile. You, as expected, Dustless leisurely stopped as a cold killing intent appeared in his calm eyes. Don't try to anger me. The price is not something you can bear. Hee, White Dragon Emperor Wally smiled and said casually. I heard from my subordinates that you have the same goal as me. No, you have a goal that is even more resentful than me. You want to capture the real Red Dragon Emperor, the Great Red, as a means of transportation. I don't even have such a crazy idea. Hearing that, Dustless suddenly understood what White Dragon Emperor Wally was thinking. He said indifferently, if you can't do it, it doesn't mean that others can't do it. Or, you think that my idea is too ridiculous and want to test my strength? Wu Chen asked expressionlessly. He finally understood Wally's purpose. Suddenly, a person who was even more arrogant than him had appeared. Wally was probably unhappy and wanted to test him. That's right. I just want to see what kind of person you are. White Dragon Emperor Wally was full of battle intent. He was not afraid that Dustless would not agree to his condition. He continued. You can reject me, but I will attack your companions. After saying that, White Dragon Emperor Wally turned into a storm and swept over. He stared at the girls with a vicious gaze and finally, his gaze landed on Isha's head. He seemed to think that she was too young and did not have the strength. This way, he could better force Dustless to fight with him. I choose you. With a flap of his wings, White Dragon Emperor Wally's speed reached the limit. Under the black night sky, his silver armor was extremely eye-catching. Ah! Isha screamed in horror, and could not help but take a step back with fear on her face. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. At the same time, a black shadow quickly came up and blocked Isha's path like a wall. Haha, you fell for it. Seeing that, White Dragon Emperor Wally was overjoyed. He gathered a majestic force in his right arm, and smashed it mercilessly at the black shadow. This time, White Dragon Emperor Wally was not worried that Dustless would escape. Once he used a move that ignored the attack to dodge, Isha who was behind him would definitely be severely injured. She might even die. Therefore, Wally judged that Dustless would take his punch. Bang bang bang. As expected, Dustless did not dodge in the end. Instead, he used his own flesh and blood to take the punch of White Dragon Emperor Wally. Boom boom boom. The deafening roar resounded through the dark night sky. Everyone looked at Dustless in shock. They saw White Dragon Emperor Wally's punch hit Dustless directly. However, It was as if nothing had happened to him. He stood there unscathed, unmoving and unwavering. How is this possible? Nothing happened at all. Wally's surprised tone spread and he subconsciously retracted his fist. His right hand that hit Dustless felt a little pain, as if he had hit a meteorite. Dustless did not react at all. Instead, his palm was sore. At the same time, Dustless's form also changed dramatically. His whole body turned into a dark monster. Under the moonlight, it reflected a cold light. He entered the state of armament hockey. Chapter 1327. White Dragon Emperor Wally was shocked, and his calm eyes rolled up. He didn't know why, facing Dustless in such a state, he suddenly regretted it. Specifically, he didn't know. In short, it was a simple word: regret. If I remember correctly, you should be 20 years old this year. Logically speaking, I shouldn't lower myself to your level, but you, this problem child, don't seem to appreciate it. You don't know what's good for you and want a yard after getting an inch. Wu Chen's eyes were filled with monstrous killing intent. He had experienced several worlds, and was an out-and-out monster who was hundreds of years old. He didn't intend to bully him. However, this kid didn't know when to back down and asked for a beating. Don't you want to witness my strength? Now I've changed my mind. Open your dog eyes and see it clearly. As his voice fell, Dustless's body merged into the darkness, disappearing with a swoosh. Where did he go? White Dragon Emperor Wally quickly looked around. It was the first time he had seen such an abnormal movement speed, which coincided with the fleeting speed of light. Idiot, behind you! Mockery sounded behind him, and White Dragon Emperor Wally quickly turned his head and greeted him with a dark iron fist. Boom! The fist covered with armament hockey was invincible, and under the brutal and powerful attack, White Dragon Emperor Wally suddenly disappeared. Boom boom boom. On the wall 100 meters away, Wally was deeply trapped in it, and the artifact covering his face was broken again. Not only that, but his right face was still red and swollen. Wally, I have a bad feeling. That guy is not right. White Dragon Emperor Arubian's cautious voice suddenly came. Through a series of previous observations, he came to a terrible conclusion. This guy is incredibly strong. Maybe this time we really opened Pandora's box and released an incredible guy. I see. Wally stood up with difficulty. His handsome face was gloomy, and he said in a hoarse voice, "No wonder Orpheus wants to join forces with him. But I can't accept it." Staring at Dustless resolutely, Wally's eyes were as sharp as a knife, full of vigor. "It's not shameful to lose, but I can't accept being defeated like this. At the very least, I have to use my full strength to fight him. Even if I lose, I'll be willing to accept it." The broken artifact healed again, and Varley returned to his previous state. "Sigh, we're probably going to be in trouble together this time." White Dragon Emperor Arubian let out a long sigh. If Wally was beaten up, he would also be unlucky. Therefore, he could only do his best to help Wally. And as Wally said, it would be too cowardly if he threw away his armor and surrendered without even fighting. Especially when his nemesis, the Red Dragon Emperor, D-Leg, was watching. Swish, swish. With a flap of his wings, Wally, who had put on his artifact again, whizzed over. He clenched his fist and punched. What's the use of such a weak fist? Raising his eyelids, Dustless glanced at Wally, who was full of fighting spirit. He felt like he was bullying a child. Feeling bored, he gave up on fighting back and signaled Wally to attack. Bang, bang, bang. A series of punches landed on Dustless. He was like a punching bag. He didn't fight back and just stood there motionless. Wally's punches landed on him, and there was only a boom 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 sound. Meanwhile, Dustless himself was unharmed. He just looked at the crazy Wally with pity. Boom boom boom. The punches were still raining down. Dustless just stood there motionless, allowing Wally to fight back. Gulp! This unprecedented scene shocked everyone. Whether it was Riaz, Song Na, or Hyoto Issei and his artifact, the Red Dragon Emperor, they were all deeply shocked. Dustless, who was being attacked, looked calm. The attacks that landed on his body were like continuous rain. He didn't feel anything at all. How is this possible? How can there be someone in this world who can take so many hits? The Red Dragon Emperor, Deleg, shouted in disbelief. He and the White Dragon Emperor were the two heavenly dragons. Their strength could be ranked in the top 10 in this world. Even if Wally couldn't unleash the full strength of the White Dragon Emperor, he shouldn't be so powerless. Dustless just stood there and let him hit him. He couldn't even move. There was no reaction at all. As if he was deeply affected, Wally suddenly roared at the sky. His tone was filled with endless anger. He then turned into a divine rainbow and flew into the sky. He released all the energy stored in his wings. His strength was always at its peak. Because Wally released too much energy, the originally dark night suddenly became extremely bright. Everyone smelled danger. There was a voice in their hearts that urged them to run. Wally uncharacteristically reached out his palm and clenched it into a fist. He shouted, "White Dragon Emperor's territory." Buzz, buzz, buzz. It was as if the end of the world had suddenly arrived. The void was distorting at a speed visible to the naked eye. Energy ripples floated out from Wally's hand. Everything that came into contact with it was reduced in size by half. "Partner, retreat quickly. He's distorting this space. We might suffer as well." As the White Dragon Emperor's archenemy, Deleg knew all of his moves like the back of his hand. What? All of them will be reduced in size by half. Hearing that, Hyodo Issei instinctively shrunk his legs. Dustless's words earlier had already left a shadow in his heart. What's wrong with my thing being reduced by half? Hyodo Issei thought angrily. Unknowingly, an earth-shattering energy wave exploded from his body. At the same time, a high-density energy wave also exploded from Dustless's body. With a flick of his finger, a flash of light whizzed out. Just as it was about to pierce through Wally, a sudden change occurred. Bang, bang, bang. When the light was about to pierce through Varley, a black shadow rushed over. At the critical moment, a huge magic fluctuation burst out and snatched Varley from Dustless' hands. Boom, boom, boom. The beam missed its target and created a large crater in the ground. Victory and defeat have already been decided. There's no need to kill him. The shadow who saved Wally chuckled. He tried to remain natural, but his nerves were tense, and he was always on guard against Dustless. If I didn't kill you, you would continue to hide, Mr. Governor of the Fallen Angel, Athasiel. Dustless raised his head and looked at the middle-aged man in front of him. He had a vague understanding of him. This guy discovered me long ago? Athasiel's eyes widened. Then he smiled bitterly and said to himself, "Really? I thought this guy didn't discover me. It turns out that he deliberately killed me to force me out to save Wally." No wonder Korkabor's aura disappeared. He was probably killed by this guy. Athasiel guessed that the culprit must be Dustless. He had seen the battle with White Dragon Emperor clearly. The giant race mercilessly trampled on the dwarf race, as easily as bullying the dwarf race. White Dragon Emperor Wally was like a clown, being played and beaten. Any attack was just asking for humiliation. Athasiel was even sure that if Dustless wanted to, this battle could end in the blink of an eye. Let's stop here. After all, he's still a hot-blooded young man, just a kid who hasn't grown up. Athasiel smiled and said in a sincere tone, indirectly admitting defeat for Wally. Although White Dragon Emperor Wally was unwilling, he still lowered his head. Just as Athasiel said, he was just a kid who hasn't grown up in front of Dustless. Even if the opponent is an insensible kid, it will still be very troublesome to provoke me often. Just don't do it again. Dustless said indifferently. He knew that Athasiel was pleading for mercy, so he didn't make it difficult for him. Sorry, I'll definitely pay you a visit when I'm free. Athasiel heaved a sigh of relief. Dustless was planning to let bygones be bygones. If they really fought, he had no chance of winning. Goodbye. Dustless glanced at Athasiel indifferently, then turned and left. Riaz and the other girls looked at each other and decisively followed. Who is that guy? He's so strong he shouldn't be unknown. White Dragon Emperor Wally smashed the ground hard. His expression was filled with annoyance and unwillingness. Being beaten up by Dustless made him feel extremely uncomfortable. His whole body was burning up. God knows who he is, but fortunately he's not our enemy. Wiping away the cold sweat on his forehead, Aesir smiled in relief. I keep having the feeling that going against that guy is the same as going against God. An invulnerable enemy was a nightmare. I'm going back to train harder. Let me know when the three-party meeting starts. I'll definitely surpass him. As soon as he finished speaking, White Dragon Emperor Wally disappeared without a trace. Chapter 1329. In the blink of an eye, it was the morning of the next day. After yesterday's battle, everyone was exhausted. Dustless was no exception. He had been tortured by the White Dragon Emperor Wally. Woo woo woo. Dustless yawned lazily. Suddenly, he realized that his body was heavy. He instinctively opened his tired eyes. And the scene that greeted him stunned him. Ria's Aisha, and this girl with aqua blue hair. Genova. Dustless opened his eyes and was shocked to find that he was wrapped in 3 balls of flesh. Riaz was holding onto Dustless's left arm, while Aisha was holding onto his right arm. As for her legs, they were held tightly by Genova. Dustless could even feel her impressive cleavage. F***CK, what's going on? Dustless was petrified. He could understand Riaz and Aisha's actions, but why Genova? Dustless could not figure it out no matter how hard he scratched his head. Hee. After a while, Dustless's lips curled into a perverted smile. Since he could not figure it out, then he should not think about it. After all, he was not at a disadvantage, and the 3 beauties in front of him were already in his mouth. If he still stood there like an idiot, he would be letting down his heroic performance yesterday. Believing in the principle of not taking advantage of others, Dustless's hands began to move restlessly. Ah, you are my fiancé. Touching other women in front of me, have you considered my feelings? Dustless paused and turned his head. Riaz looked at him. Her words filled with jealousy and jealousy. You are right, but shouldn't you fulfill your duty in advance? Dustless retracted his hands and pointed at the most important part of himself as a man. He said righteously, after yesterday's battle, I am very tired. He is even more tired. Riaz, fulfill your duty as his fiancé and reward him. Hearing that, Riaz's face turned as red as an apple. Definitely not. Riaz shook her head like a rattledrum. There was no room for compromise. Since you are not fulfilling your duty as his fiancé, then I have no need to follow your rules. I have been holding it in for a long time, and now I need to vent. After that, Dustless turned around and looked at Aisha's sleeping face. He waved his hands again. Just as he was about to reach Aisha, Riaz jumped out and interrupted him. No, I won't allow you to do that. Your first time must be mine. Riaz sat on Dustless's body and said resolutely with her hands on her hips. My first time. Hearing this, Wuchen laughed involuntarily. How many times had he given Riaz? But that's of the mind's eyes of it, of the world of course, eyes of the eyes eye of the eye. Of the eye of the eyes of the eyes. Riaz scratched her head, looking like she was having a headache. She did not expect to be troubled by something like this. Riaz, why don't I remind you? Wuchen stared at Riaz's enchanting thin lips and said meaningfully, a stupid woman only has 1 mouth, but a smart woman has 3 mouths. This is why those smart women can keep men captive. 3 mouths. Hearing that, Riaz was stunned. Looking at Dustless's mysterious face, her eyes lit up. Are you saying? Dustless smiled but did not say anything. He only pointed at his mouth. You, hearing that, Riaz's face turned red. She glared at Dustless angrily and asked, if I don't do that, what will you do? Do you even need to ask? Dustless rolled his eyes and said angrily, I'll definitely cheat on you. Staring fiercely at Wuchen, Riaz had no choice but to compromise. She looked at him with a complicated gaze and then sighed deeply. She might be able to take a good-for-nothing man for herself, but for a man who was the best in all aspects, Riaz felt pressured to monopolize him. In the end, Riaz could only follow Dustless's arrangement and drink all of Dustless's things. When she woke up in the afternoon, Riaz's jaw was no longer sensitive enough to speak. Speaking of which, I can understand Riaz and Aisha sleeping with me, but you? During lunch, Dustless looked at Genova in confusion. It's no big deal. Junai said there's no place to sleep, so I can only squeeze with you guys, Genova said to Dustless calmly as she chewed on her drumstick. You're not a demon anyway. Then Genova added, I don't mind, so why would you mind? Or are you afraid that I'll take advantage of you? You're right. Forget it. Facing Genova's answer and questioning, Dustless's mouth twitched. In the end, he could only wave his hand and let it go. Just as Genova said if she did not mind, then he had no reason to mind. I'll be staying here from now on, Genova suddenly said in a matter-of-fact tone. Lord Michael has given his permission, and Rena will also be staying here temporarily. Other than that, there's another big problem. Can you not be so sure? This is not your home, Dustless retorted and looked at Junai. After all, this was her home. However, Junai was smiling. Clearly she had passed the test. You guys didn't collude long ago, did you? Riaz also smiled mysteriously and appeared to be quite intimate. Dustless suddenly felt like he had been betrayed. Chapter 1330. Dustless did not know whether to laugh or cry at this. Aisha, Riaz, and Junai all looked natural. Needless to say, they had already guessed the news of Rena E and Genova moving in. Silver was the only one who was in the dark. Is this Michael's arrangement? Dustless asked with a frown as he locked onto Genova, who did not care about his image at all. He felt that something was amiss. Call him Lord Michael, Genova said unhappily with a straight face but still explained. It is indeed Lord Michael's idea. Our current strength is still lacking, so Lord Michael asked us to come out and train. It would be best if we could find a suitable powerhouse to be our master. As you know, Rena E and I are not familiar with this place, so we have no choice but to stay at Junai's place temporarily. Plus, you are a barely decent master, so we decided to stay here, Genova said as if everything was normal. He did not seem to care about Dustless's darkened face. Barely decent master? F***CK, are you looking down on me? Dustless stared at Genova gloomily before finally looking at Riaz. Although this was Junai's house, Junai would not allow someone from the church to stay here without Riaz's permission. Oh right, it seems that the fallen angels, demons, and angels will be having a tripartite peace talk recently. Dustless's eyes sparkled. He had almost forgotten about this. In that case, it was normal for Riaz to accept it. It would show the demon's sincerity. Hey, you sold me out without my permission. If you're so powerful, why don't you go to heaven? Dustless grabbed Riaz's clothes and questioned her softly. Heaven? Isn't that simple? Riaz was confused. She immediately revealed her black demonic wings and was about to fly. Stop playing dumb. You can be the master. I'm not interested in such a thankless task. Dustless saw that Riaz was just brushing him off, so he decided to be direct. Is that so? Hearing that, Riaz was extremely calm and composed. She was not worried about Dustless rejecting her at all. Instead, she moved her impressive figure closer to Dustless's side. He pointed at her rosy lips and said, It seems that you don't want to experience this morning's activity again. Gulp. Dustless choked on his sobs as his eyes shone with the light of a wolf. Even though it was his first time experiencing it, he could not find fault with Riaz's eloquence. No. Although I feel that it's not bad, it's too troublesome this time. I have to increase the stakes and change to another place. Suddenly thinking of something, Dustless changed his mind. No. Riaz's face was burning. Wu Chen was hinting that she should use her second mouth. She still felt that she was too young and too young. Idiot, didn't I tell you before? Women have 3 mouths. Dustless made his intentions clear and said, I need your third mouth. That place, I've never tried it before, Riaz. Hearing that, Riaz's face turned red like an apple. She looked up and saw Dustless's eyes burning with fire. The scorching light almost melted Riaz. Whatever, it's going to be yours in the end anyway. I'll agree to it this time. But you have to focus on being their master. This is an agreement between a demon and an angel. You can't go back on your word. Riaz finally backed down and agreed to Dustless's shameless request. No problem, I promise to make them the best of the best. Dustless nodded confidently. Even though it was his first time coming into contact with the unfamiliar profession of master, he still had the intention to teach Genova and Wisteria Rena well. At night, the cold wind swept across the land. Dustless and Riaz huddled in the small house. Just as they were about to settle Riaz's matter, there were always a few disruptors. Buzz buzz buzz. Light flashed across the ground as magic surged, and two figures appeared. Idiot, put on your clothes. Riaz hurriedly ordered with a straight face. It's Gulifia and Mother. Them. Hearing this, Dustless's eyes flashed with a playful luster. His originally quickened hands and feet slowed down instantly. He thought happily in his heart. My two little lovers are here. We're all on the same side. There's no need to stand on ceremony. We're all on the same side. Dustless shamelessly laid down. Not only that, he even pulled Riaz's clothes off. The energy of chakra in his palm shattered all of Riaz's clothes. Are you out of your mind? Riaz screamed. Just as she was about to pounce on Dustless and bite him to death, Riaz's mother's voice suddenly came. Riaz, you are. Venerana's words stopped abruptly. Her eyes widened as she stared at Dustless and Riaz. Especially when Riaz was still lying on top of Dustless, as if she was going to push Dustless down. Miss Riaz, you are too. Gulifia quickly turned her back to Dustless and Riaz, her hands sweating. She did not expect Riaz and Dustless to be having sex. Mother, Gulifia, please let me explain. Since we're all family, there's nothing to worry about. Riaz and I are going to take a bath. Do you two want to join us? Compared to Riaz, who was blushing and looking for a hole to crawl into, the thick-skinned Dustless was naturally much calmer. He calmly pulled Venerana and Gulifia to sit beside him. In the demon world, this kind of thing was actually very common. For example, men and women taking a bath together was almost universal, even if Dustless was just making it up. Chapter 1331. Hearing Dustless's explanation, Venelana and Gulifia let go of their resistance. Whether it was the demon realm, the real world where humans lived, or even the territory of the angels, it was common for men and women to bathe together. It was nothing to be surprised about. It was just a local custom. All right then. I've been a little tired lately, and I need to relax. Venelana was relieved as she winked at Dustless. After all, both of them had done it before. Bathing in the hot spring was no big deal. I know. Dustless chuckled and winked at Venelana. Well, how about? Thinking of Dustless's eccentric personality, Gulifia decisively refused. However, before she could finish her sentence, Dustless stood out and exposed her, making Gulifia feel depressed and anxious. I say, Ms. Gulifia, you're not giving face to Lias and Auntie. Is it wrong for you to bathe in the hot spring with them? With a smirk in his eyes, Wu Chen said in a strange tone. Hearing that, Gulifia opened her mouth but found herself speechless. As a servant of the Gimli family, she had to follow orders from above unconditionally. Even though she was Sazax's wife, she was still working. As the future son-in-law of the Gimli family, she had to call Dustless young master. I understand, Ms. Lias, Lady Venelana. Gulifia glared at Dustless before bowing to Lias and Venelana. I'll go prepare the things you need. Please wait for a moment. Having said that, Gulifia left without a trace, always wearing a professional expression. Gulifia really doesn't know how to have fun. She always looks at me like I'm a pervert. Dustless complained in his mind. He couldn't help but feel jealous of Sazax. He thought that even though he had taken Gulifia's body, he couldn't take her heart. It was a pity. In the small space, steam filled the air, and a few figures could be seen in the smoke. This was a small hot spring in Junai's home. Dustless and the other three were squeezed together, sticking close to each other. Each of them only covered the important parts, so skin contact was unavoidable. Tisk tsk. Junai is so smart. I must have built this small place. Wu Chen hummed a song with a pleasant expression. His behavior was lazy. He looked as comfortable and relaxed as if he was smoking a big cigarette. He moved left and right, which was better than a living immortal. He was sandwiched between Gulifia and Venelana. Speaking of which, why did Gulifia and Auntie come to the human world? Wu Chen asked curiously, abandoning the strange emotions in his heart. The meat was right in front of his mouth, and there was no need to fight for it. After all, they couldn't outrun Dustless, who could move at the speed of light. The three-way meeting between fallen angels, demons, and angels is about to begin. The meeting location this time is Chariot King Academy, where you are. Gulifia and I came here to tell you to pay attention to some details. Be careful during this period. Someone like Korkabor might come out to cause trouble. Oh, is that so? That's all? Dustless asked with a smile. He looked at Riaz's mother, Venelana, with a you-know-what-I-mean expression. Is this kid the reincarnation of a pervert? Venelana was also a wily old fox. She naturally knew what Dustless's gaze meant. Little bastard, listen to me. Don't make me look bad. When we find a suitable place, I'll feed you. Venelana pinched Dustless's arm and whispered in a voice that only the two of them could hear. Don't worry, my lovely mother-in-law. I'll cooperate with the demons. If anyone dares to cause trouble, I'll beat them up until their own mother can't recognize them. Dustless returned the favor with a don't worry, leave it to me expression. But then again, this time the big shots from all over the world are gathered. The two demon kings from the demon realm, the governor of the fallen angels, Asashel, and even the archangel Michael will be here. Gulifia said with a myriad of emotions. Her tone was filled with respect. These were all people who could shatter heaven and earth with a snap of their fingers. All of them were the overlords of their own superpowers. They're just a bunch of arrogant scum. Sazak's wife is mine, and so is his sister. Seraphal is mine too. Her sister, Tsang, is mine too. Even the fallen angel Asashel doesn't dare to challenge me. The archangel Michael even gave his confidant to me as a disciple. He's most likely trying to rope me in. In the end, the most powerful person here is still me. Absolute power crushed everything. Because Dustless was powerful enough, everyone respected him and wanted to curry favor with him. Hence, there were endless benefits. That's not all. Only the demons, fallen angels, and archangels aren't complete. I remember there's also the Norse mythological system. Dustless went straight to the point. Venelana and Gulifia immediately looked at him in surprise. They did have such thoughts, but how did Dustless know? Could this kid really have the ability to see the future? With that thought, Venelana couldn't help but move closer to Dustless. They were soaking in a hot spring, so everyone wore very little. They only covered their important parts to prevent any leakage. Now Riaz's mother, Venelana, suddenly moved closer and almost sat on Dustless's lap. Mother, if you keep squeezing him, this kid will be overjoyed. Riaz pouted, her eyes full of resentment. Chapter 1332. Dustless's eyes flashed with interest. There was something different about Riaz when she was acting like a little girl, and it made Dustless's heart skip a beat. Then I'll provoke you a little more. Dustless, who was bored, thought to himself. He had just dealt with the White Dragon Emperor Wali, and since he had nothing else to do, he might as well find some time to do something else. Dustless and Riaz's mother could read each other's mind, and they could see each other's teasing intentions from their faces. Ouch, it hurts. I sprained my ankle. Venerana suddenly cried out in pain, and her face turned pale. Sprained your ankle? This unexpected turn of events stunned both Gulifia and Riaz. Gulifia rushed to Dustless's side, and carefully picked up Venerana's foot. After looking at it carefully, she said worriedly, Lady Venerana's foot is indeed swollen. That's weird. Although Riaz did not say much, she was still suspicious and distrustful. Her stern gaze swept over Venelana and Dustless. She felt that something was wrong. Spraining your ankle in the water? This was the first time Riaz had heard of such a weird excuse. But Dustless's face was full of worry, and Venerana's face was pale from the pain. It did not look like an act. It's just a small matter, and it'll be a big problem if it's delayed for too long. Lady Venerana is of noble status, and she can't get hurt. Is there any potion or medicine that can be used? Gulifia looked at Riaz and Dustless for help, but they both shook their heads. Ahem, Gulifia and I will go buy some. Riaz will stay here to take care of Lady Auntie. After clearing his throat, Dustless said righteously. He looked at Gulifia's delicate body, and his heart itched. It was very uncomfortable. I object. I object. Riaz and Gulifia refuted Dustless's suggestion at the same time, as if they had an agreement. I'm more familiar with this town than you are. Leave it to me and Gulifia. You stay here and watch out for Lady Mother. Riaz's tone was cautious and warning. All right then. Hearing that, Dustless, who was in high spirits, fell from the clouds into the ravine. Riaz could not help but laugh when she saw that. She skipped and left with Gulifia. Hee hee, little girl, you want to fight with me? That's called advancing in order to retreat. With that little bit of skill of yours, if you want to exchange blows with me, it would be 3,000 years too early. After noticing that Riaz left, Dustless's face changed. Thud, thud, thud. Wuchen walked in front of Vainilana with an evil smile on his face. He grabbed her neck and squeezed her to the corner of the wall. When her breathing changed, he deliberately asked angrily, Your daughter ruined my attempt to strike up a conversation. Tell me, how should I punish you? You can do whatever you want with me. Venilana's eyes were like silk, and her coquettish voice contained electricity. Dustless's body went limp with her. What a bewitching seductress. Dustless mumbled to himself. He was really afraid that he would not be able to suppress himself, and would be devoured by this demon. The lifespan of a demon was almost infinite. Even though Venilana was already a grandmother, she was still able to turn the world upside down. Rather than saying that she was Rias Muqing, it would be more appropriate to say that she was her sister. Most importantly, Venilana was a mature poppy. In terms of being a woman, she was far more mature than the young Rias. Vainilana's smile and movements were extremely moving. Her pure water eyes made people unable to shift their gazes away from her. TSK, you said that I can do anything to you, right? Dustless's wicked knife circled around Venilana's peerless body. She suddenly felt that those things in the past were really old. It was time to play some new tricks. I need to pee. This place is not suitable. Junai's nose is very sensitive. If I pee at will, he will definitely find me. Dustless pretended to be in a difficult position, but he was actually looking at Riaz's mother with a perverted expression. That's troublesome. Hearing that, Venilana blinked. She naturally understood what he meant. She then took the initiative to stand in front of Dustless. She opened her mouth slightly, and an orchid fragrance came out of it. If you don't mind, just like before, please pee all over here. Hearing that, Dustless could not help but suspect that Riaz's father was definitely not good in a certain aspect. Otherwise, Venilana would not be so crazy. She would not reject any of Dustless's requests. Thank you for your hospitality. I won't hold back then. Since Venilana took the initiative to come to him, Dustless naturally would not hold back. After aiming at her thin lips, he completely turned into a demon king at that moment. Since Riaz and the others always called him the reincarnation of the sex god, Dustless would be a competent sex god this time. My cute mother-in-law, how does it taste? After a while, Dustless's face was full of naughty smiles. This was not the first time. He did not feel much when he did it. After all, living creatures were creatures of habit. Cough, cough, cough. Venilana looked at Dustless with a reproachful look. Her throat was very choked. Just as she was about to rest for a while, she was held down by Dustless and could not move. Then Venilana suddenly felt that it was much heavier. Let's play a game of horse riding. My cute mother-in-law, please ride the horse. Dustless smiled naughtily. At the same time, he used all his strength to pat Venilana's butt. Instantly, a few deep red palm prints were left. It was so painful that her face changed slightly, but she endured it. Chapter 1333. Time passed, and in the blink of an eye, a week had passed. At this moment, in the Supernatural Research Lab in the Chariot King Academy, buzz buzz buzz. Ripples of light rose from the ground, and a magic array appeared. A handsome man with long, red hair and clad in armor slowly emerged from the magic array. Lord Sazax. All the family members in the room bowed slightly, their faces full of respect. Really? Why did you drag me into this kind of situation? Dustless lowered his head and groaned in protest. He did not have time to play games with Sazax here, especially with this kind of identity game. Dustless, whose status was not as high as Sazax, could only bow and scrape. It's not a big deal. I'll just take it back from your mother with interest later. Dustless thought happily. In the past few days, he had turned Venelana into a high-end saintess in front of people, and an extremely lewd slut in secret. Venelana would do anything Dustless asked for by Dustless. Of course, it was not without a price. During this period, Dustless gave Venelana a Logia devil fruit, which made her happy. Dustless fought with Dustless for a day and a night until she completely collapsed and fainted. Only then did Dustless stop. Buzz buzz buzz. Immediately after, the magic circle that Sazax stepped out of flashed with a dazzling light, and a beautiful girl with a ponytail and fair skin rushed out. Seraphil, God has been kind to me, and I'm destined to enjoy the happiness of having multiple partners. The appearance of one of the demon lords, Leviathan Seraphil, made Dustless's heart tremble. Her short, but curvy body made Dustless unable to stop himself. Just you wait. Sooner or later, I'll make you pay back double for sure. As if noticing Dustless's attention, Seraphil suddenly turned her head and snorted coldly. She would not let go of the grudge of having her virginity forcibly taken by Dustless. Absolutely not. This little girl is very vengeful. Dustless awkwardly rubbed his nose and tactfully retracted his gaze from Seraphil. Lias. His gaze passed through the crowd and finally landed on Riaz and Dustless beside her. He said with great satisfaction. Well done, a fallen angel of Korkabor's level, as expected of my sister. Well, actually, after Sazax said that, Riaz immediately became bashful and embarrassed. The person who killed Cockbur was actually Dustless. Riaz's words caused an uproar among the crowd. Everyone stared at the skinny, slightly hunchbacked young man beside her, dumbfounded. If he's the one who killed Korkabor, I believe it. Leviathan Raffles, one of the Demon Kings, said in a cunning tone. What does this little girl mean? She must be up to something. She wouldn't help me for no reason. Not only was Dustless not happy, but he also began to think about Seraphil's intentions. The weasel is up to no good. Let's be on guard for now. Unable to think of anything, Dustless calmed down. It was just a demon king, nothing to worry about. At the same time, the sky outside underwent an unimaginable change. A large number of demons and other foreign species, including angels and fallen angels, gathered in the sky. It was not hard to see that this meeting was very serious. Buzz buzz buzz. In the supernatural department's research lab, flashes of light flashed again, and then two teams with completely opposite auras appeared. If one side was a crow immersed in darkness, the other side was a holy and bright divine bird, opposing each other. They belonged to the fallen angels, and the angels respectively. The fallen angels were Athasiel and the White Dragon Emperor Wali. The other group of outsiders was the angels led by the Archangel Michael. Although their auras were completely different, both sides had smiles on their faces. On the surface, they seemed to be very sincere. To choose such a place for a solemn meeting, I feel that the demons are not sincere. Athasiel casually chose a place to sit down, as friendly and easygoing as if he was in his own home. He did not treat Dustless as an outsider at all. His skin was so thick that even Dustless was impressed. The White Dragon Emperor, who was his follower and could barely be considered a bodyguard, crossed his arms in front of him and leaned against the wall silently. His gaze was fixed on Dustless and Huta Issei from time to time. These two had brought him shame, so he had to remember it and settle the score with them in the future. Your Excellency, I think before you accuse others, you should sit down and explain your actions. Not only did Korkabor steal the holy sword of our church, but he also almost started this war. Don't the fallen angels owe an explanation? Before Sazax could speak, Archangel Michael asked in a sharp and cunning tone. Upon hearing that, Everyone's eyes were focused on Athashel's head, including the Demon King Sazax and Seraph. What should be explained must be explained clearly. Actually, I also want to ask why the fallen angels sent the fallen angel Rina Li to kill me. Dustless also took advantage of the chaos to stir up trouble. His eyes were like torches as he looked at Asashur. When he had just arrived, this guy was probably the one who had sent Lena to assassinate him. Now Dustless naturally had to ask why. Hearing this, Sazax breathed a sigh of relief. His face was also filled with joy. Since no one has any objections, let's quickly conclude a peace treaty and end the unnecessary fighting between the fallen angels, the angels, and the demons. We're in too much of a hurry now. There's no need to be so anxious. The smile on Sazax's face froze. He followed the source of the voice and found a satchel with his eyes closed. After the battle with Korkobor, I've understood a lot of things. Even if the three of us conclude a peace treaty, it's useless. Some powerful people can completely ignore the existence of the treaty. Just like Korkobor, what's the difference between our treaty and a piece of scrap paper? It'll only leave a laughingstock. A satchel hit the nail on the head, causing Sazax and Archangel Michael to lower their heads in contemplation. This was a problem that could not be ignored. The truly powerful would not yield to others. It was wishful thinking to rely on a treaty. When a person had the power to destroy the world, who would obey the orders of others? Obviously, it was impossible. Therefore, I want to hear the opinions of the three of you, the Red Dragon Emperor, the White Dragon Emperor, and Elias Jimenez's fiancé. Asashel's words made Dustless and the other two the focus of attention, especially Dustless, whose strength was the most unfathomable. He was like a shining piece of gold. Everyone looked at him in unison, anticipating Dustless's answer. A boring peace treaty actually brought out so much nonsense. These guys are so bored. They might as well go home and have a good night's sleep. Dustless complained in his heart. He took in everyone's gazes and sighed inwardly. Ah, do I really need to say such ridiculous things? Dustless scratched his head in annoyance. He really did not know how to answer this question. I have to say it. No one is an exception, Seraph said firmly. It was rare for her to oppose Dustless. Her eyes narrowed into crescents. She was very pleased to see Dustless's depressed expression. I don't have the great ambition to dominate the world and dominate the universe. Compared to that, I care more about which family's girl can hit on me. Then I'll build a very wide crystal palace of various races. Dustless's answer made everyone speechless. They felt like they were being brushed off perfunctorily. Dustless and I have the same dream. Yuta Issei immediately stood up and added. It was rare for him to stand in the same trench as Dustless, the most annoying handsome guy. After that, everyone looked at White Dragon Emperor Wally, hoping that he would not give the same answer as Dustless and Issei. Otherwise, the divine artifacts they were given would cry. Chapter 1335. Wu Chen naturally understood their disdain. He had the power to destroy the heavens and exterminate the earth, but he didn't have the dream of dominating the world. Instead, he only wanted to live in a drunken stupor. Perhaps in their eyes, Wu Chen was already beyond saving and had been possessed by a sex fiend. Even Riaz's brother, Sazax, also cast a disappointed look at Dustless, as if he expected better from him. He still hoped that Dustless would help him in the future, but now it seemed like it was just a pipe dream. Idiot, I'm thinking for you. If one day I really plan to dominate the world, you arrogant demon kings and gods will all be swept into the garbage dump of history as dust. Dustless curled his lips in disdain. With his strength, he could easily rule the world. Don't mind it, no matter what choice you make, I will support you. Riaz grabbed Dustless's little hand and put it on her chest, and said solemnly. Dustless felt a warm current flowing through his heart. He was silent, as if he was planning something. After a while he smiled gently. Riaz, actually, I think it's not bad to push you to the position of ruling the world. However, Riaz did give Dustless a coquettish look and chuckled. Actually, I'm not good at scheming. It's too tiring to live like that. To be honest, I'm really afraid that you have the idea of unifying the world. Hearing this, Dustless shook his head. The world of One Piece, Naruto, and Shinigami, almost the entire planet was wiped out by him. At first, the feeling of ruling the world was not bad, but in the end, it gradually became boring. There was no joy in it at all. Living and scheming all day was really tiring. The feeling of being lonely at the top was sometimes very annoying. My dream. At this moment, White Dragon Emperor Wally suddenly spoke, attracting the attention of Dustless and Riaz. They looked at him at the same time, like a star in the eyes of millions of people. I just want to defeat 2 people. There is no other purpose other than the first time. White Dragon Emperor Wally said calmly, without any fluctuation in his tone. 2 people. It seems like he only wants to defeat Gardard, the Great Red. Since when did another one appear? Could it be the infinite dragon god Orpheus? Or did he discover the potential of Hyoto Kazunari and want to defeat him? Dustless guessed, but he noticed that Riaz was looking at him with a half-smile. You seem to have forgotten to include yourself. You have given him too much of a shadow. If I were him, I would also want to defeat you at all costs, not to mention White Dragon Emperor Wally, who is arrogant and thinks that he is superior to others. Riaz rolled her eyes and said, White Dragon Emperor Wally's life had been smooth sailing, but he suddenly met Dustless, this malefic star. He was beaten to a pulp and lost all his prestige. Anyone would be traumatized, let alone someone like Wally. Buzz buzz buzz. Ka ka ka. Boom boom boom. At this moment, a strange tremor came from the heavens and earth. The Supernatural Research Department, where the 3 factions were having a meeting, suddenly trembled and fell into a strange atmosphere. This is, Syzax, Seraphil, Archangel Michael, and Athassiel all changed their expressions as a bad feeling flashed through their minds. Looks like it is about to begin. White Dragon Emperor Wally laughed in his mind as he looked at Dustless with a burning desire to fight. TSK, looks like we are being attacked. People nowadays are so bold. There is a Demon King here. Dustless walked to the window and looked at the changes in the outside world. He broke the tense atmosphere with a teasing tone. The dimension outside was quickly twisting as if it was under some mysterious curse. The entire world was rippling and filled with a murderous aura. At the same time, countless small vortexes appeared in the void, and a swarm of enemies came out from them, almost surrounding the entire sky. This ability to control time and space. Could it be? Riaz and Syzax looked at each other and saw the surprise in each other's eyes. They seemed to have guessed who it was. Gasper. Both Riaz and Syzax thought of this name. He was the only one who had this ability, but due to some special reasons, Riaz had to seal Gasper away. Who would have thought that someone she had forgotten would become a pawn for the enemy? Buzz buzz buzz. A large group of mages kept pouring out from the other side of the dimension like an endless swarm of ants. If we don't seal this dimension in time, we will be killed by the human wave tactic sooner or later, Syzax said solemnly. His pupils were filled with crimson light as destructive magic vibrated. No one dared to look him in the eye. Syzax was very clear about his personal and private grudges. He looked at Riaz with a stern gaze. Riaz, this is all you're doing. I am sorry, brother. This is all my fault. If I had let Gasper manage me, this wouldn't have happened. Riaz's expression was complicated as bitterness lingered in her heart. She did not feel good. She had chosen to escape when faced with setbacks and difficulties, and now she had only herself to blame for this. This is not a big problem. We just need to find Gasper. Dustless stretched and said as if it was as easy as eating and drinking. This was a simple answer, but everyone knew how difficult it was. It was easier said than done to find Riaz's minion Gasper. It may sound simple, but doing it was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Easy for you to say. Since you are so capable, do it yourself. White Dragon Emperor Wally, who was not on good terms with Dustless, said. He was wary of Dustless, but that did not mean he was afraid. He would not be afraid of anyone, not even the Great Red, the real Red Dragon Emperor, let alone Dustless. Chapter 1336. Staring at White Dragon Emperor Wally with interest, Dustless secretly despised him. In fact, the sudden attack this time was inextricably linked to him. His boring provocation was probably to force Dustless into a trap. Fine, I'll see what tricks you have up your sleeve. I'll play you to death. Facing White Dragon Emperor Wally's provocation, Dustless chose to fight back. He opened the window resolutely, and a majestic energy wave surged in his body as if he was about to fly out. Dustless, don't be fooled. This guy is doing it on purpose. Rhea stared at White Dragon Emperor Wally angrily, and her tone was filled with hostility. She said sharply, "Fallen angels are not good people either." Hearing that, Asashel frowned and looked at Rhea's, who was on top of her head. His lips moved. The first 2 times were indeed the responsibility of the fallen angels. To make up for my sins, I'm willing to help you this time. This kid still has a conscience. Dustless also stopped complaining about Amonoshima's sneak attack. He knew that although Asashel's mouth was sometimes vicious and his personality was a little perfunctory, sometimes he was unbelievably reliable. You want to deal with so many mages alone? Looking at the mages who covered the entire sky outside the window, Sadix frowned with a strange look in his eyes. No matter how many bugs there are, it will never change anything, Dustless said calmly. He did not care about the mages in the sky at all. Humph, the higher you stand, the worse you fall. I hope you don't fall to your death later. If you do, I won't save you, White Dragon Emperor Wally said in a strange tone, mocking Dustless. Hee hee. Hearing that, Dustless laughed and said in disdain, "If there is someone in this world who can make me fall to my death, I'm sure that person is definitely not you." You. White Dragon Emperor Wally's mouth twitched, and he could only retract his anger. Anyway, the plan has begun. Wait for me to activate Tyrant Dragon mode. You'll see. Wally held back. He already knew about this, and even the mastermind behind it knew. The mastermind was the old Demon King's faction. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Dustless's appearance attracted a rain of bullets. The rays of light that filled the sky merged into a large area, transforming into a multicolored sky that blasted over. Petty tricks. Dustless let out a soft sigh as boundless energy fluctuations erupted from his body. His left eye twisted, and the black pupil was replaced by a purple one. Ripples spread out and 9 black magatama hung on it. Wherever Dustless's eyes swept, the void would ripple, and the magicians would collapse and squat on the ground, trembling. What kind of eyes are those? The appearance of the Rinnegan shocked everyone. The moment the strange eyes appeared, Dustless's temperament also changed. A man with a cheeky smile had suddenly turned into a god who viewed all living things as grass. Perhaps it was as he said that day. Seeming to have thought of something, Asashel said, "He's not fighting at all, he's just playing a boring game with Wally." Damn bastard. What the hell is going on with those eyes? Artifact? But why haven't I heard of those strange eyes before? White Dragon Emperor Wally roared unwillingly. Affected by Dustless's temperament, he also felt as humble as an ant. He could only look down at Dustless from this angle. There was no comparison between the two sides at all. Buzz buzz buzz. Under everyone's surprised gaze, a large amount of high-density energy gathered in the sky. Dustless was like a volcanic crater that was about to erupt. His body constantly emitted energy fluctuations, and ripples visible to the naked eye spurted out from his body, crushing the surrounding sky. The magicians who were unlucky enough to touch them were crushed into pieces, and their whole body turned into a pool of mud. Super Shinra Tensei. Along with Dustless's voice falling, a wisp of shocking energy fluctuation erupted from his body and instantly swept through the heavens and the earth. Boom boom boom. The sky within a radius of tens of kilometers was all detonated by Dustless, instantly killing all living things within the range of Super Shinra Tensei. The sky that was originally occupied by the magicians was instantly restored. All of them were eradicated in one move. Gulp. The whole world was silent, and only the sound of sobbing could be heard. Everyone ran to the window and stared dumbfoundedly at the clear sky. Everyone's mouth was wide open. How is it possible? So many of them were wiped out in one go. Even I felt the threat of death from that rampaging energy wave just now. I'm sure that if someone wanted to kill us, We would have disappeared along with this school. No, this town. What a terrifying attack, so powerful. Who the hell is this guy? The fallen angels, demons, and angels were all in an uproar. They pointed at Dustless, who was floating in the sky with two different expressions of fear and panic on their faces. Can he really wipe them out in one move? White Dragon Emperor Wally was dumbfounded when he saw this, and his breathing became heavy. He thought that Dustless was just trying to impress the crowd, but he did not expect that he could really do it. Moreover, it was done in an insignificant instant. Wally could not help but ask himself. He could not even do such an exaggerated attack. Wu Chen's strength was beyond his understanding, especially looking at his current expression, which was as calm as the wind and clouds. It was obvious that this was not his full strength. In the face of thousands of black shadows, Dustless's thin figure was particularly eye-catching, and he became the center of attention. Chapter 1337. All in all, everyone present had a clear understanding of Dustless. It shouldn't be a problem for him to surpass me. Looks like destroying Ria's and Phoenix's marriage and betrothing her to Dustless was the right choice. Demon King Sazax let out a hearty smile. He was quite happy with his brilliant decision. Of course, if he had wanted to see the changes in his wife, Gilifia, he might have been unhappy and put on a constipated expression. How is this guy so powerful? Gilifia's delicate face was burning. Looking at the majestic young man in the sky who seemed to be able to kill anything in his way, a strange feeling spread in her heart. After all, she had a special relationship with Dustless. They had even had sex before. Gulp. Zhu Nai and Ria stood side by side, looking up at Dustless, who was going on a killing spree. Both of them had their own ulterior motives. Zhu Nai's eyes were filled with faint starlight. Since ancient times, beauties loved heroes. That was an unchanging law. Ria's lend me Dustless for a few days. Zhu Nai stroked Ria's hair and said with a dazed expression, "Lend him to you? You want to have him, don't you? I know you too well, Zhu Nai. Don't even think about it." Ria's put her hands on her hips and rejected Zhu Nai's harsh request. You arrogant brat." Demon King Seraphil snorted. At the same time, a strange feeling arose in her heart. Her delicate and perfect face had a complicated expression. After all, she and Gilifia had been forced to have sex by Dustless before. Maybe it's not a bad idea to have him as a backer. Life was like rape. Since there was no way to resist, one could only enjoy it silently. As a demon king, Seraphil naturally understood such a simple logic. All in all, everyone had their own thoughts at the moment. Even Archangel Michael had a faint smile on his face. He had sent two of his subordinates, Genova and Wisteria Rena, to Dustless. In the future, they could always have pillow talk. At this moment, Dustless naturally did not understand their thoughts. He was focused on the dense black vortex in front of him. It should be there. The observation hockey spread out, and Dustless keenly felt that one of them was unusual. His body glowed with faint photons and turned into a flash of light. In a mysterious unknown space, a young girl wearing a gothic lowly dress sat in the air, swinging her legs in boredom. Her jade-like hand was holding her chin, and her eyes were dull and confused. She looked very bored. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. In the dark space a large amount of light lingered, and in an instant, it was incomparably bright. The girl also turned her head from her daze, and a satisfied smile appeared on her face. "Brat, your strength is not bad. I only released a little of my power, and you were able to discover my existence. Your strength is not bad, and I am very satisfied. Therefore, I said that you are not inferior to me," the adorable girl said seriously. Buzz buzz buzz. In the dark space a large amount of light condensed and quickly compressed into a human figure. Finally, it turned into a handsome young man with eyes as bright as the stars. "You're not Gasper. Looks like I've come to the wrong place." Dustless frowned and looked at the girl in front of him. He suddenly felt that she was familiar, but he was sure that he had never seen her before, and there was no impression of her. The girl was wearing a gothic lowly dress, and her dark ink-like hair was dancing in the wind. Her skin was white and beautiful, and her jade face was as dazzling as the bright moon. Her deep eyes were very pure and clean, without the slightest flaw. Dustless thought about it and realized that he still didn't know her, but she was somewhat similar to a vague outline in his mind. He had to ask tentatively, "Infinite dragon god Orpheus? You know me?" The girl's pupils splashed with faint ripples, and her tone was somewhat surprised. "I don't know, I've heard of your legend." Dustless replied truthfully. There were very few people in the world who had seen the infinite dragon god Orpheus, but there were many people who had heard of his legend, and Dustless was one of them. "You've heard of my legend? That's even better. Be my subordinate obediently, and I'll give you power to help me defeat that evil dragon that's disturbing my peace." When the word evil dragon was mentioned, the infinite dragon god Orpheus' naturally dull face had a rare touch of emotion. Evil dragon? Hearing this, Dustless was speechless, but he understood what Orpheus was talking about. He immediately shook his head and said, "I'm sorry, I'm not interested now, and I don't have the extra time to be your subordinate. Although I'm very curious about the great real red dragon god emperor. It's impossible for you to use me to fight against the great red." Orpheus blinked and seemed to be confused. She looked at Dustless in confusion and said, "I'm lending you my power, and you're helping me to fight against that evil dragon. Is there anything wrong with that?" "Of course not. Firstly, I don't need your power. Secondly, I'm not your subordinate, and there's no need for me to fight against the great real red dragon god emperor, according to your orders. That's your personal grudge." The infinite dragon god Orpheus nodded as if she understood. It was difficult for her to understand because she didn't know much about the world. "Goodbye." Seeing Orpheus lowering her head and thinking, Dustless was about to leave when a clear voice stopped him. "No, you have to help me defeat the great red." Orpheus floated in front of Dustless like a ghost, and then simply snapped her fingers, sealing the space exit. This fellow. Seeing this, Dustless frowned even more. If he didn't know Orpheus well, he would have thought that she was deliberately looking for trouble. Chapter 1338. Dustless looked at this naive and adorable young lady. If anyone else dared to do this, they might have already been torn into pieces by the raging Dustless. But the infinite dragon god Orpheus was an exception. For some reason, Dustless could not bring himself to kill her when he saw her innocent and adorable face. At the end of the day, you are just a chess piece being used by others. You are just an innocent young lady who does not understand the ways of the world. Looking directly at the adorable face of the infinite dragon god Orpheus, Dustless spoke frankly. "In reality, with your strength, you don't even need to borrow the strength of others. You can fight to a draw with the great red." Dustless looked meaningfully at the infinite dragon god Orpheus. Without a doubt, the infinite dragon god Orpheus was chased out of the dimensional crevice, and the instigator was the great red. But did this mean that Orpheus was not a match for the great red? It was a big mistake. If the two dragon gods fought, the entire world would collapse. Perhaps it was because Orpheus realized the seriousness of this problem that she left the dimensional crevice. No. Orpheus' calm eyes showed a rare fluctuation of emotions and a hint of worry. She said, "You are right. If I fight with her at all costs, no one will be able to do anything in the end. However, my hometown and this world will both collapse. That would be too much of a loss. I couldn't tell that you are quite smart. You know the consequences of doing this." Dustless looked at Orpheus in surprise. "So you chose someone like Wally to work with?" Dustless asked curiously. Then he sighed. "Investing in Wally is not as good as investing in Wally." "You are right. I used to think so too. I plan to gather the two heavenly dragons under my command and train them to a certain level. They will definitely become good helpers. But this was all in the past." Orpheus tapped her chin lightly. Then she looked at Dustless with sparkling eyes. "I changed my mind. Someone like you can totally replace the two of them." "Poochie." Dustless staggered and almost fell down. He looked at Orpheus with disgust and couldn't help but feel speechless. Although this little lowly is simple, she's not stupid. She's very shrewd in some things. She actually knows how to use me as a tool. Compared to Issei and White Dragon Emperor Wally, Dustless's potential was more than just a little bit higher. Even if they were given 100 years, it would be difficult for them to catch up with Dustless's shadow. No matter what, I don't want to work with anyone for the time being. As for the Great Red, a huge red monster appeared in his mind. Dustless did not think that it was a dragon. I can easily deal with it single-handedly, so there's no need for us to work together at all. Dustless answered frankly as he looked into the eyes of the infinite dragon god Orpheus. No. The infinite dragon god Orpheus rejected Dustless with an adorable face. Then he continued to act shamelessly and said, "If you don't cooperate with me, I won't let you go. I believe you. Then it seems that there's even less need for us to work together." Dustless interrupted Orpheus. He looked at the dark void in front of him indifferently and shouted, "God's might!" Pucci. The void suddenly distorted violently and a mysterious vortex appeared. Then, Dustless activated his eye power and tore apart the sealed key of the black void. "This kind of thing is just a small problem for me." Glancing at Orpheus, Dustless's body emitted a warm glow. He turned into a beam of light and disappeared. His speed was so fast that even Orpheus couldn't keep up with him. Only Orpheus and Dustless were left in the space of dead silence. Or rather, it was a short sentence. "We'll meet again if fate allows it." Orpheus' eyes, which were as clear as agate, looked at Dustless, who disappeared in the blink of an eye. The thought of dragging him into the pit didn't fade away. Instead, it became stronger and stronger. "We'll meet again soon. At that time, you won't be able to escape from my palm." Orpheus repeated his words a few times, and his gem-like eyes shone brightly. His tone sounded very confident, giving people the illusion that he had Wuchen under control. Outside, above the Carriage King Academy, the dimension was distorted, and countless vortexes were clearly visible. A large number of sorcerers poured out of them and attacked the enchantment of the Carriage King Academy. "It's endless. If we don't find the kid named Gasper, these guys can't be killed." Dustless frowned. At the same time, his observation hockey spread out again and swept between heaven and earth. "Found him." After a few seconds, Dustless suddenly opened his eyes and looked across the layers of space and saw Gasper, who was caught. "Hey!" Dustless suddenly turned into a golden light and rushed out. He was durable, but other people in the supernatural research department were exceptions. They were far less thick-skinned than Dustless. "That eye looks good. The ability to stop time and space is rare." Entering a special space, Dustless saw a blonde boy in women's clothes. He was bound to a glowing magic circle. It seemed that the strange magic was using this to take advantage of Gasper. "There's an intruder, kill him." The few magicians who reacted exclaimed in surprise. Their words revealed deep surprise. Dustless being able to invade this place was not inferior to them. They were all figures at the same level as the Demon King. At the same time, they didn't forget to rush over fearlessly. Silver Wheel Reincarnation Explosion. The sharpness of the Tensigan appeared. Dustless waved his hand and a fierce chakra storm appeared. The attacking sorcerers were instantly killed. Their bodies were torn apart by the storm, and all the sorcerers were killed. At the same time, it meant that everything was about to end. You're tuning in to the Echoes of the Heart YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.